I'm calling the order to the meeting of the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Board of Education for Tuesday, March 13th, 2018.
Tenemos interpretación en español, por si alguien gusta escuchar la presentación en español. Tenemos el equipo en las mesas de afuera. Gracias.
Thank you.
Talk sort of into
All right, I'm going to talk this way. So headsets for the hearing impaired are available. Please indicate if you need a headset. The board will now move to public comments on closed session item number 2, Public Employee Discipline, Dismissal, Release, Government Code 54957. But before we begin public comment, I would just like to take a moment to welcome all of you to the Santa Barbara Unified School District School Board meeting, and really thank you for attending. Your voices are important to this process, and we appreciate the time you are taking to provide us with your perspectives at this meeting. And I also would like to take time to just acknowledge everyone who contacted me and all of the board members and provided your comments as well and your concerns for this closed session item. I have made a point to read every single email and respond to every single email. So I want to thank you for doing this, and it was a lot of reading. But I do appreciate your perspective, as we all do here at the board. I also want to assure you that this is the board's highest priority. It is the commitment to the mission and goals of the district. And I think it's important just to state that mission. The mission of the Santa Barbara Unified School District is to ensure the educational success of all students through high expectations and a commitment to excellence, and to empower them to reach their full potential as responsible, ethical, and productive citizens in a diverse and changing world. Our board meetings follow board policy protocols, and to ensure that it is an effective and efficient process. Key to this process is really about maintaining a respectful atmosphere for responsibility for everyone present and not present. And so I would like to publicly state here that I respect everyone here and their perspectives that you bring to this meeting. And in return, I request the same respect be used when speaking from the podium to all persons in and outside the room. As a board, we strongly believe it is important to provide an opportunity to hear from all the members in the community. We will first have an opportunity to hear from Mr. Behrens. After he has spoken, we can move on to community public comment. We want to honor everyone's right to speak. In order for the board to timely complete the business of this meeting that you are attending, and as board president, I am authorized to determine the specific amount of time for each speaker. Typically, in our board meetings, we allow for 3 minutes. Since we have over 50 public speaker slips, we are going to provide 1.5 minutes to those speakers. This ruling was specifically upheld in the Court of Appeals case, so we are following a specific case that this is allowed. For those speakers utilizing translation, we will also provide 3 minutes, so we will double the amount of time. Each speaker will receive a 30-second warning in an effort for you to complete your thoughts in a timely manner. Please respect this process. Now, I'm going to go ahead and close public comments at this time. So please turn in any speaker slips now if you have not already. Per board meeting protocols and policy, we will not be responding to any comments made by the public. The protocol for public comment in board meetings is strictly for the board to have the opportunity to hear all of you and hear the response relational to the issues on this board agenda. After public comment has been completed, the board will go into closed session to deliberate and make its decision. After the board has made its decision, we will reconvene in open session with all of you to announce its decision and to identify how the board members voted. After that announcement, the matter will be concluded and there will be no further comments or discussion by the board. The board will take a short recess and then move on to consider other items on the agenda. We will plan on calling five people to each podium. So Ms. Sims-Moten will call 10 people first. I'm sorry, you're going to call them? Okay, Ms. Parker will be calling 10 people up at first, 5 for one podium, 5 to the other podium. So please begin walking up and line up immediately once we call your names, so we can do this in an efficient manner. Thank you.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay,
Let me introduce you. I don't think you know who this is, but let's welcome Mr. Barron.
Good evening, School Board, Superintendent Matsuoka, and Cabinet. Thank you for hosting this presentation tonight. Superintendent Matsuoka has 4 pillars of leadership: integrity, vision, passion, and competence. My record embodies each of these. My passion and vision was to create the very best high school possible. Kate, you remember when I met with you and Susan Deacon in 2011, and I talked about the programs I wanted to bring to San Marcos High School? We brought those programs to San Marcos High School. My goal was to build upon the previous successes and create a variety of award-winning programs and academics. We expanded the student experience and continue to innovate to make San Marcos exciting, preparing the students for real world with stellar academics, excellent athletics, and academically oriented clubs. I may not speak as smoothly as some may wish for a principal. I'm an understated leader who connects with students and enjoys one-on-ones with staff. I prefer to shine the light on extraordinary faculty and the diverse and brilliant student body at San Marcos High School. This style and our results have gained widespread support and cooperation from the community. Innovation under my leadership. Laura, I worked with your mother, Lois Capps, in 2001 to help create the Health Academy. I worked with Ron Worth, the CEO of Cottage Hospital. I worked with Santa Barbara City College and Congresswoman Lois Capps to create the Health Academy at San Marcos High School in conjunction with Sue Dockenhouse, who was the first director of the Health Academy. As you may know, we were facing a huge nursing shortage in Santa Barbara. And I'm very happy to say that because of the Health Academy that I helped co-create with Sue Dockenhouse, we have a lot of more nurses at City College and more certified nursing assistants. In fact, when my son was born, one of the CNA students from San Marcos High School came into the room and helped us. I'm so proud of the students from the Health Academy at San Marcos. It was with my passion to aid underrepresented students that I worked with John Clark from the Bauer Foundation and Joanne Keynes from LaCumber Junior High to co-create the PEAK program, initially called the POSSE program, now called Program for Effective Access to College. Through this partnership, we've created a model program that was honored by the state of California. We got a Gold Ribbon Award in 2015 for the PEAK program. I'm happy to say that we led the way. This model was also adopted by Santa Barbara Unified and expanded to all the other schools. Currently at San Marcos High School, we have 12 cohorts of students in peak, and they all have above a 3.0 GPA. Other innovation, Brian.
We might need that other TV. Keep rolling, man. We got your back.
All right. Other innovation since I've been principal at San Marcos High School. Royal time. We knew that at San Marcos High School we had a program called the After School Homework Club. We had 20 to 30 students attending the After School Homework Club a day to get help with academics. We looked at our data. Our data showed us we had 200 to 300 students with D's or F's at San Marcos High School. They needed help, and they weren't getting help after school. So what we did is we took a team down to the Whittier Union School District. We visited Whittier High School and Lucerna High School. We brought back Royal time, embedded intervention time during the school day to help struggling students at San Marcos High School. And it took a lot of work and collaboration to make that happen. It took 3 staff votes, but we got it in place and we're continuing to refine Royal time. I'm very proud of my work that I've done with Just Communities, that our school has done with Just Communities. To date, currently we have 46 staff members that have attended the Institute for Equity in Education. We've had 3 sessions of talking in class and 2 sessions of PIDA. In fact, Ishmael, thank you for helping us last year with PIDA. I really appreciate your support and your help with that. Additionally, very proud of the work we've done with equal opportunity schools. We continue that work. We were able to identify 160 underrepresented students to take an advanced placement class for the very first time. Also, super proud of the students in the Academy for Success. This year is our first graduating class from the Academy for Success. We were able to start that program after the model that Kelly Choi started out at Dos Pueblos High School, and we've been successful. We have the lowest 30 students in the freshman class are now graduating from San Marcos High School this year. Future Leaders of America. I work with Future Leaders of America to help train Latino students to run for office. I really appreciate the work of the Future Leaders of America, and we also totally revamped our election process. So we were doing election during lunch. Students who came up and voted. We moved the election to the class so that every student had an opportunity to vote. Subsequently, that work, we have a lot more Latino leaders in leadership positions in ASB and class office. Super proud, Kate, the Entrepreneurship Academy, my dream, my vision when I talk to you. Students are now creating businesses right out of high school and learning all about business and going and majoring in business in college because of the Entrepreneurship Academy. Here is a photo of 2 students, the first dollar that they made in their own business at San Marcos High School Entrepreneurship Academy. Right here is Mildred Gonzalez Salazar and Ana Avalos. Their business is called Dulce Cultura Aguas Frescas. Another dream and vision that I had when I became principal was to try and create a foundation to support San Marcos High School. In 2013, we successfully created the Royal Pride Foundation and subsequently have raised over $3 million. That funding is going to campus improvements and to help underprivileged students. $28,000 this year is allocated for the Academy for Success. Other programs that I'm proud of: the creation of the Cafe Royale Culinary Arts Program. The creation of computer science at San Marcos High School. We didn't have computer science, now we do. We had kids in PE that wanted to really attain fitness. Our coach, Chucky Roth, created the Royal Fitness Challenge. I fully support him, and now they're able to work out with Mr. Roth just like any student that has a gym membership. Royal Fitness Challenge class. Our freshmen are able to take advantage of the Key class by John Daly in their health classes, and also Attitude, Harmony, and Achievement, teaching students about tolerance in the 9th grade. I've never been a politician, but I am a principal who gets positive results. Competence is results demonstrate competence. Here's some examples. We received a 6-year WASC accreditation while I was principal at San Marcos High School. We received a California Gold Ribbon honor for the PEAK program, which I helped co-create at San Marcos High School. Enrollment has increased among all ethnicities at San Marcos High School since I've become principal. Intra-district transfers have decreased significantly since I've become principal. Also, the graduation rate has gone up from 90% to 94% from 2013 to 2016, and our dropout rate has dropped from 8.2% in 2013 to 2.4% in 2016. Since I've been principal, San Marcos High School has won 22 CIF academic championships and 4 CIF championships. The Latino parent and student community have joined with me to produce other results. También, yo puedo hablar en español para las familias que hablan español. The number of students classified as English learners has decreased from 20.3% in 2012 to 12.7% currently. includes reclassification of 200 students in 2014 and 2015 alone. Our most recent CASP results: 45% of economically disadvantaged Latino students met or exceeded the English language arts standards. Good job, English teachers. School safety. I have effectively handled several threat incidents without a district program in place. Before the online incident, in the fall, my initiative was to add more security cameras at San Marcos High School. I approached the district for funding. There were no funds, so I approached the Royal Pride Foundation and the PTSA, and they budgeted $15,000 for additional security cameras to improve school safety at San Marcos High School. Also, board members, I appreciate that you read my letter. It has all the details in there regarding that. Regarding my demotion, obviously I disagree with it. I believe it is short-sighted. I believe it is hasty. I ask you, board, please recognize the efforts I've made at San Marcos High School. Please consider the extraordinary accomplishments my staff and students have achieved under my leadership. Nothing I have done warrants my removal. My fear is that this hasty act will inject uncertainty and instability upon a great high school that exudes phenomenal pride. I feel it would be a huge detriment. We may suffer a decline in student enrollment and parent commitment. I predict that even if you had my replacement today, it would take several years to get the school back to where it is now. In conclusion, for the past 6 years, I've worked with a great group of teachers, a great group of administrators, a great group of parents and students to make San Marcos High School the best that it could be. Please don't throw away what I have achieved. I know it's Carrie's recommendation, board, but it is your decision. I'm asking you, please, allow me to continue to lead the school to even greater academic success. I do look forward to collaborating with you, with Superintendent Matsuoka and the Cabinet to focus on areas for further improvement. With your support, coupled with the support we have from the San Marcos community, I'm confident that the results will astound us all. Thank you very much.
I'm going to go ahead and call up speakers. And as Dr. Reed said, I'm going to be calling 10. If the first 5 could go to the right-hand side podium, and then the next 5 could go to the left-hand side. And I know that's going to mean some crisscrossing, but some of you want to speak in a certain order. And so to facilitate that, you're going to need to go to a particular podium. So for the first 5, it's Deza Mandarino, followed by Vic Ramirez, followed by Jamie DeVries, followed by Ian Wood, with Chucky Roth in parentheses, Nancy Sheldon, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the first 5. All right, and then the second 5, Donna Barker and Edgar Rodriguez together, Kirk Taylor, Christopher Gallo, Rosario Zapata, Katina Etzel, all right, and once everybody's in place, I'll get started with Ms. Mandarino.
I'll never forget it. Our awesome health department at San Marcos High School was hosting and providing a wellness and health fair. To the left, there was a station with an Army represent and a pole, a bar to do pull-ups. All of a sudden, I hear, Mr. Behrens, Mr. Behrens, Mr. Behrens, the student voice getting louder and louder and louder. I looked around me. It was palpable. The relationships that Ed Behrens has made with our students, the school spirit that you personally embody and exude and elicit from our students. So Ed, he rolls up his sleeves, he runs to the bar, he jumps up, he cranks out as many pull-ups as he physically can. He was completely maxed out. I looked at his body, and I heard the student body go, 1 more, Mr. Behrens, 1 more. And it got louder, and it got louder, and I looked at our principal with dead arms hanging, and he looked at those kids, and I can't believe it. He could do another pull-up. He did it out of the inspiration and love of our kids. Ed is a rock. He is a foundation. Storms arise, and he's strong for us. He's like a great father. What does that look like, a great father? A great father is there for you. He's at your events, your school events.
Time.
He supports you. He cheers for you. He provides for you. $3 million, the Royal Foundation.
Good evening, distinguished board members, Superintendent Matsuoka. Thank you for your time. I've been a teacher in the district for the past 21 years as a football coach and baseball coach, and I'm currently teaching AVID, Peak, Chicano Studies, and I'm a member of the Academy for Success. Throughout my career, I've had friends ask me which high school their kids should go to, and obviously I'm pretty biased. But I do always tell them one thing that I'm certain of, and that is that Ed Behrens has helped create a campus community of great pride and tremendous opportunity that serves the purpose to enrich the high school experience of all students. Peak and Academy of Success are 2 of those programs that have flourished exponentially over the last 6 years under the guidance and direct support of Mr. Behrens. These 2 programs have flourished because of Ed's unwavering support, and that is how Ed has always been. If it benefits students and students are interested, Ed will make it happen, and he does it selflessly, maybe almost to a fault, but that's Ed's character. He doesn't need to bask in adulation, is indifferent about who gets the credit. He props up these programs, they sprout, they thrive, and it's on to the next opportunity to engage students. We thank you for hearing us this evening, and we know that there's a difficult choice to make, but we want you to know that he has guided us through a turbulent period of transition over the years. He is selfless, determined, and most importantly, fully committed to the advocacy and enrichment of the student experience. We certainly hope that you will take into consideration all that you've seen and heard these past 2 weeks, and rather than tear down one of the pillars of the San Marcos community, the community at large, that you support Ed Behrens. Thank you very much.
Before you get started, can I just ask for speakers, as you come up, I've already called your name once, but if you could introduce yourself and make sure that your name is caught correctly for the camera, since I may mispronounce it, that would be great. Thank you.
School Board Superintendent, good evening. My name is Jamie DeVries, and I teach social studies for the last 19 years at San Marcos High School. I've served under 5 principals at San Marcos, and I will tell you, there's one thing that's been clear. year after year, and the truth that I've learned is this, is that strategic plans and programs in schools are great, not because of the strategic plan, but because there's a person behind that plan. And the reason why, like, our PE department is great, as you can see, is Dessa Mandarino and Chucky Roth. The reason why our music department excels is because of Kioi, Mr. Kioi and Miss TV. The reason why San Marcos High School is fantastic is because of Mr. Ed Behrens. I don't pretend to know all the reasons why Mr. Behrens was demoted, but I can tell you this. I so wish
30 seconds.
I so wish I could take you back 6 or 8 years ago to San Marcos High School and see the changes that have gone from now to then. In times like these, I always look for teachable moments, and here's my teachable moment. When we employ restorative justice to apply between student and teacher, the same grace that we want our students to bestow, we want the school board to bestow upon Ed Behrens. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Ian Wood. I'm a proud San Marcos parent and a supporter of Ed Behrens. I want to quickly read from the letter that a good friend and longtime San Marcos teacher and coach, Brian Chucky Roth, wrote to the board in support of Ed Behrens. Chucky's not able to be here tonight because his son's playing in a championship basketball game. Chucky, for those of you that don't know, Chucky is the 2012 San Marcos Teacher of the Year and the 2012 County Distinguished Teacher of the Year and the best motivator and mentor of children that I know. Chucky writes, please accept this letter as a full endorsement of Ed Behrens as the principal of San Marcos High School. Ed Behrens is a great leader and cultivator of innovation and best practices. I've had 5 different principals and several different vice principals, and I can tell you that Ed is one of the most caring and invested principals that I've worked for. Mr. Behrens has been an incredible advocate and supporter of my Royale Fitness Challenge class. The Royale Fitness Challenge class serves as a family workout group, a team for students who cannot play high school sports, who are
30 seconds.
Who are intimidated of high school sports. Under Ed's leadership, we've created perhaps the best PE class in the state, if not the country. The class serves the unrepresented students at San Marcos. I don't think people hear enough of the actions Ed makes to support these students who need it the most. These stories do not often make the front page of the newspaper, but they're the programs that keep the students in school and motivate them to come to school. Last thing I want to say is amen.
Thank you.
My name is Nancy Sheldon, and I'm here to read a letter from Eric Burrows, who would have been here from Arizona, but his father is ill. I have taught for 25 years. I've served under great principals, good principals, and awful principals. I've had the honor of working with Ed Behrens for 9 years, and he is simply the best. He is a great man and a great principal. Ed loves San Marcos, and the students love him, and he supports teachers, and teachers thrive under his tutelage. Ed innovates, and the school creates amazing programs. His work has made us a great school, and one in which we can all be extremely proud. In my tenure as California Teacher of the Year in 2005, I traveled Santa Barbara County and the state to select teachers for the 2006 honor. In all those travels and in all those interviews with all those people I met, no one held a candle to Ed Behrens. To see the transformation of San Marcos under Ed's watch, to see the extraordinary efforts to reach forgotten populations, to see academies meeting the needs of special students, and to see teachers creating innovative and spectacular programs to help students is to witness the magic of Ed Behrens. Finally, in my 7 years as Deputy District Attorney in Oakland, I learned that sometimes we didn't have the right guy, or that the facts were much different from what was originally assumed. I know you can find justice in this situation. I know you can do the right thing for Santa Barbara and the San Marcos community. Retain Ed Behrens as our principal. It is not only the right decision, but the best.
Before I switch podiums, I'm going to have the next 5 come up to my stage right podium, and they are Dawn Schroeder, Melanie Rosales, Alex Guadagno, Jose Landeros, and Winky Cooper. And over on this side, we have Ms. Barker and Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you. My name is Donna Barker, esteemed board, and Mr. Matsuoka. I want to emphasize that I cannot thank Ed enough for the opportunity to come on board to San Marcos High School back in 2014. When I interviewed with Ed in 2013, he outlined to me what his vision was for the culinary arts program. It was sort of a ground floor effort to get a program off the ground. Beautiful facility, great kitchen layout, but we needed the heart and soul of a program where students could come and create and develop under the guidance of not only myself, but of a great administrative staff. Since that time, I'm just going to give you a couple different types of programs that we've been able to develop. My Culinary Arts 1 program is now A through G accredited for art. We are dual enrollment with Santa Barbara City College with 6 units that transfer into their culinary program. We are beginning a Pro Start program under the American Culinary Federation and the National Restaurant Association. My kids have flourished and grown in this program. My average of my Latino students is anywhere between 56 to 65% of my classes. My EL students represent anywhere between 9 to 15%.
Next up on this side on my list, I have Mr. Taylor. Is that?
Thank you very much. My name is Kirk Taylor. I've been teaching math at San Marcos High School for 26 years. I've been under 7 principals, and I don't really even have to think very hard about the fact that Ed is the best one out of all those 7. I'm here to sort of voice the opinion of the staff in general. We collected a lot of thoughts and a lot of comments together. I'm going to read through a short bullet list of a few of those. I've presented all of those along with 67 signatures from the staff members to the board already. Some of these have already been mentioned, so I'll kind of skip past them, but there's a lot of personal things in here that are worth mentioning. One thing is that Ed's complete dedication to the betterment of every aspect of our school is clear to anyone who knows him and who has been around him for a while. He views his role as principal not as a stepping stone, but as a career pinnacle. He's not here to build up a resume, he's here to make this a better place. Ed's enthusiasm and leadership has inspired all this leadership. Money inspired, I'm going to skip through the list here because I don't have too much time. Here's one thing I really wanted to say. He has consistently shown that he values staff input on everything. He listens to us, he discusses with us, he makes a decision, and he is willing to change his mind if he gets new information. He's also willing to apologize if he makes a mistake, and that, I'll tell you, is very rare. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, can I ask, because I had a Mr. Rodriguez with you, Ms. Barker,
I'm sorry?
There was a Mr. Rodriguez on...
There is.
Did you want to speak separately, Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes, please.
All right, go ahead.
My name is Arturo Rodriguez. I'm a former Royale, class of 2017, and I'm just here because I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that terminating Ed was the right decision. I know that there was many complicated aspects to the whole situation that I may not know entirely, but thanks to Ed and his vision with the culinary program, I was able to obtain a ServSafe manager's certificate. I also got my food handler's permit, and because of that, I'm able to pursue my dream to become a chef, and I'm currently enrolled in the culinary program at City College. And if Mr. Ed Behrens didn't have that vision for the culinary program, I don't know what I'd be doing. I don't know if I'd even have the idea of pursuing college after high school. Ed knows the ins and outs of the whole high school, and I think that the process of finding a new principal is just pathetic, and that Ed Behrens needs to be at San Marcos High School. And if there's one thing for sure, is that when my little sister enrolls into San Marcos High School next year, I want the student handbook to say, President Mr. Ed Behrens, Principal Ed Behrens, pardon me.
All right, next up is Mr. Christopher Gallo.
Hello, good evening, board and superintendent. My name is Christopher Gallo. I am here as a parent, but also as a former board member. I was in the Hope School District Board for 8 years, and I was known then and still am now as all members and all bottom line. So not a ton of emotion for me, but when I first heard about Ed's possible demotion, I went back through and looked at the numbers. A lot of those Ed already shared with you tonight, but I really think it's important that when you're met as a board member with this kind of emotion and this kind of fiery topic, to go back and look at the numbers, and that's what I'd always find solace and the reason to think I'm doing the right thing or I'm not doing the right thing. So, and just to highlight what Ed said, the dropout rate, that's phenomenal, right? So he's gone from 8.4% to 2.2% over the last 3 years. It's well better than the district, well better than the state. Same thing with the graduation rate. Ed pointed out we went from 90 to 94%, again ahead of both. I think one part in terms of the testing that was done last year for the juniors in 2017, the entire San Marcos population went from METs or exceeds from 49% to 62%. And that's a huge increase for everybody. The district and state stayed flat, right around 50%. Finally, the Hispanic, Latino, economically disadvantaged subgroup, where he showed San Marcos High at 46%, had peers, two other high schools at 33 and 43 respectively. So if I were in your seat and I was looking at this, Ed would not be the person I'd get rid of.
Thank you.
Rosario Zapata.
Yo soy un padre de San Marcos, mi nombre es Rosario Zapata, y nosotros los padres siempre hemos sentido las puertas abiertas con el señor Behrens.
I'm a parent of San Marcos, and we as parents have always felt open doors with Mr. Behrens at the school.
¿Qué es puertas abiertas para nuestra comunidad hispana?
What are the open doors for Hispanic community?
Nosotros nos sentimos bienvenidos, con confianza para hablar.
We feel welcome, and we feel free to talk.
Y expresar lo que sentimos y necesitamos.
And free to express what we feel and what we need.
El señor Behrens es un líder porque nos está enseñando a crecer, a tener confianza en nosotros mismos. Podemos expresar nuestras ideas.
Mr. Behrens is a leader because he's showing us how to grow and how to have faith in ourselves. We can express our ideas.
En nuestras reuniones de San Marcos hablamos sobre las necesidades de nuestros estudiantes.
At the meetings at San Marcos, we speak about the needs for our students.
Sin preocuparnos en quién se va a molestar.
And we don't have to worry about who's going to be bothered by this.
Porque el señor Behrens tiene una escuela con un ambiente donde todos nosotros nos sentimos bienvenidos.
Because Mr. Behrens has a school with a feeling that we all feel welcome when we go there.
He visto al señor Behrens muy eficiente trabajando en nuestra manera de involucrar a todos los estudiantes y tener logros más altos. También el señor Behrens es muy respetuoso con todos y tiene un gran corazón.
And Mr. Behrens is very efficient when he works, using new ways of involving us in school and involving other students and to have greater achievement.
Solo quiero pedirles a todos ustedes que reconsideren su decisión. Si el señor Behrens...
I only want to ask all of you to reconsider this decision.
Si el señor Behrens tiene que aprender nuevas formas de proceder o hacer algo porque nuestro mundo está cambiando dramáticamente.
if it is that Mr. Behrens has to learn new ways of doing things or to do something because our world is changing drastically.
Realmente creo todos los administradores de todas las escuelas
I feel that all the administrators at all the schools
secundarias y preparatorias necesitan ser enviados para entender, para entretener.
I feel that all the administrators at the junior highs and high schools need to be sent to training.
El señor Behrens no puede ser castigado por cosas que están fuera de nuestro control. No seamos injustos con el señor Behrens.
Mr. Behrens should not be punished for things that are out of our control.
Ms. Etzel?
Yes. Hi, Katina Etzel. My children entered San Marcos in 2007 and 2009. We were inter-district transfers from Santa Barbara High because we wanted the block system. And although we had amazing teachers, as a school community, I would describe us as average and a little low energy. We had more students leaving our high school than any of the other high schools, and we had a perception problem. And as parents, we were frustrated. We knew we were better than that. We were Royals, but we didn't have the pride, and we didn't know how to roar. And then the wise people on the school board appointed Ed as our principal. And Ed said, I want to make San Marcos High School the best high school in America. And we thought, wow. Ed listened and learned. He was willing to admit when mistakes were made. He collaborated with parents, faculty, staff, coaches, local businesses, Cottage Health, City College, and pretty soon we had Link Crew to make all of our freshmen feel
30
welcome.
seconds.
And we had a spirit card selling swag in the quad, and we established academies and programs, and we established the Royal Pride Foundation. And we were so invested in the continued success of San Marcos that Judy Coper, Julie Proctor, Patty Zylstra, and I continued to serve on that board for 3 to 4 years after our children graduated. We had learned to roar. My friends, that is what leadership looks like. And
Before I switch back to the next podium, I'm going to call the next 5 to come over to this side to wait their turn, and they are Kara Gambardella, John Daly, Tom Condon, followed by Brett Matthews, and finally Matt Fay. And then we will start over on this side with Dawn Schroeder.
All right, am I on?
Yes.
I'm Dawn Schroeder. I stand before you as an elementary educator, as an alumni of San Marcos, and as a parent of children who attended Dos Pueblos and San Marcos and graduated from them. I list these so that it's clear to each of you that I have a very broad perspective and I have no personal agenda or anything to gain when I say I'm in 100% of Ed Behrens being reinstated as or being retained as principal at San Marcos. First, as an educator of 28 years, I realized the board's responsibility to look at the whole picture, the whole school, the whole student body of San Marcos. As an alumni class of '84, I've seen San Marcos in its highs and lows. I felt fortunate to go to a wonderfully safe and sound educational institution, and then I saw San Marcos slide into a struggling school with very little to offer an ever-widening diverse population. As my first child entered high school, San Marcos was not what it had once was, and it was struggling for its own identity.
30 seconds.
We enrolled him at DP based upon programs, and we had no complaints. 5 years later, San Marcos, for my daughter, had changed for the better. Things were happening and evolving, exciting, and the desire to improve was prevalent. The feeling of inclusion, involvement, and community were unlike anything we had experienced before. Under the leadership of Ed Behrens, the school had transformed into a place for a wide variety of students to succeed.
Time. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Melanie Rosales, and I am one of the results Mr. Behrens was talking about. I am a junior at San Marcos High School and a member of the Entrepreneurship Academy. It gives me pride and joy to be able to say that last part, and I have Mr. Behrens to thank. I'm not going to stand before you today and pretend I know all the details behind Mr. Behrens' demotion, and I honestly don't even think that's my job. I am here to talk about the opportunities and programs at our school that were made possible through his leadership. While Mr. Behrens has been in office, San Marcos has created programs that have helped spark interest, ignite passion, and innovation in many, and touch the hearts of those in our community as well. But then there are all of our personal stories, the challenges and sacrifices we continue to make in order to attend San Marcos. I live in Bealton, and the 30-minute commute I soon face is nothing compared to the hour-long drive that lots of my classmates make every day to attend our school. We have students from Lompoc, Ventura, Oxnard, Carpinteria, Montecito, and this only shows the commitment of our classmates. It's heart-wrenching what we've been through lately, but I truly believe it has only made us a stronger school. Mr. Behrens' leadership and positivity through it all has taught us to not give in to fear, but to face it with a strong face. I speak on behalf of my fellow classmates and parents and community members who came here today. Just look around the theater tonight, and you'll see which school puts the Unified in Santa Barbara Unified School District.
Good evening. My name is Alex Guadagno, and I'm an 11th grade student at San Marcos High School. I feel honored to speak here today on behalf of the students at our school. I'm a believer that every student at San Marcos is capable of success, and that's because of the abundance of opportunities provided by the San Marcos community, and especially our faculty members. These adults go out of their way to help students discover their passions, support us in our endeavors, and teach us to be better students, community members, and people. As a member of the San Marcos Health Academy, varsity athlete, member of the student government, participant in mock trial, and president of a club on campus, I can say that I have noticed a trend among these groups. I have seen a development of school unity and culture. There is shared pride in San Marcos High School, and that pride is attributed to the people on campus who work harder than we could ever know to create an environment for our success and a platform for our futures. Thank you, Mr. Behrens. Thank you.
Hola, me llamo José Landeros y soy un padre de la escuela San Marcos.
Hello, my name is José Landeros and I am a parent at San Marcos.
I was going to do that. Hello, my name is José Landeros and I'm a parent of San Marcos Apple Academy student. I'm extremely grateful that we are part of the Apple Academy. Apple is continually trying to reach out to incoming Hispanic students, informing them of the wonderful opportunities that Apple has to offer. For the current cohort class, 27% are Latino. For the incoming 2022 class, 30% are Latino, 19 of 33 are minorities, and over half the class is non-white. Additionally, there are 2 Latinas in Apple leadership. My daughter is Apple Academy president, and the junior class vice president is held by another Latina. Participation in the Apple Academy has greatly benefited my Latina daughter and has maximized her academic success and produced a leader. Due to participation in Apple, my daughter was able to apply to 23 colleges. Apple encourages all students to participate in leadership opportunities. Mr. Behrens has supported my daughter as she started a special cheer team for students with disabilities, the Royal Gems, where most of the students were Hispanic. Whether it is Apple, Avid, entrepreneurship, there is something for everyone to participate in at San Marcos High School.
Hi, I'm Winky Cooper.
on your list, also Helen Cooper, you received some emails. I'm here to express my full support for Ed Behrens, and I believe in his leadership and vision for San Marcos. I have been a parent connected to San Marcos since 2010, so I got the benefit to see Mr. Behrens change the school. And now I'm a freshman parent, and I've been here to many meetings now to see you, and to be very clear that freshman parents feel safe. I feel safe at school. We are in full support, and parents choose the school for all the many reasons that you're hearing. I was part of school site council during the time that Ed talks to you about creating the Royal time, and so I served on site council for 3 years with Mr. Behrens and saw the complete focus of student success and working in collaboration with teachers and doing research, and students are part of that
30 seconds.
also. So I really hope that you will focus your energy into rectifying the situation as a board to really right a wrong and keep Mr. Behrens in his position at San Marcos High School, and for our continued royal pride to grow, because we are ready for stability, and he is the one to make that happen. That's why I've continued to come here.
All right, and before we switch sides, if the next 5 could please come up to stage right, and that is Gavin Moores, followed by Bruce Keesis, followed by John Daly, followed by John Wigand, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, and then Eric Vulgaris. And over on this side, we have Ms. Gambardella to start.
Good evening. My name is Cara Gambardella, and I'm here to talk in support of Ed Behrens on 3 levels. First, as an alumni of San Marcos High School. I graduated in 1990, and along with my siblings, the Gambardella family spent 1982 through 1984 at 1994, at San Marcos. Second, I speak for Ed as a former San Marcos teacher and colleague. From 1997 to 2006, I served as an athletic director, English teacher, and coach at San Marcos. Third, I speak for Ed as a community member who remains connected to, involved in, and supportive of the school. During the time my siblings and I attended San Marcos, the school enjoyed the leadership of 2 of the longest-serving principals on campus. I recall the vibrancy of our school spirit, parent involvement, and community stature. However, after their tenure, a revolving door of principals and leadership at San Marcos had begun. During my 9 years teaching at San Marcos, we had 4 different principals. I know firsthand that San Marcos struggled with declining enrollment and waning public perception. We felt that San Marcos was getting the short end of the stick from the district, who in 15 years had not succeeded in finding a principal who could offer a long-term commitment to our campus. Hiring Ed Behrens in 2011 was the best thing to happen to San Marcos in decades. San Marcos has blossomed into a school of choice for academics, extracurriculars, and athletics. The district and the superintendent cannot be so short-sighted as to cut him short. There can be nothing so egregious in Ed's personnel file to warrant this demotion.
Thank you.
Next I have Mr. Daly, or it can be.
Good afternoon. My name is John Daly, and I am the founder and the teacher of the Key Class. The Key Class teaches social skills and job readiness skills such as resume writing and interview techniques. I have had the great fortune of volunteering my time with all the high schools here in Santa Barbara as well as Ventura and Oxnard. We as a community and you as a board are at a critical junction due to the recent events at San Marcos High School and around the United States. I've had the pleasure of knowing Ed Behrens for the past 6 years through Partners in Education, where I served as president in 2016. Ed has a passion for excellence and has the highest moral values. He has been made very clear by watching him as a quiet leader that makes giant steps. He is loved by his faculty and, more importantly, by his students.
30 seconds.
To take the position of leadership away from Ed during these hectic and frightening times would prove to shake the foundation of the strong bond he has awaited within the school. I urge you as a board members to consider this in your decision this afternoon. Ed is a kind, decent, and considerate man that is proven by his track record to be the perfect leader for San Marcos. Thank you.
Mr. Santana, am I missing a speaker slip? Okay. But if she wants to go ahead and go since she's been waiting up there, that would be fine.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es María Ventura.
Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Maria Ventura.
Soy mamá de una estudiante de Sheila de Loya.
I'm mother of one of the students.
So, yo miro aquí que es algo injusto que quieran sacar a mis parents.
As I see it here, I think it's unjust to get rid of Mr. Barnes.
Porque él ha sido un buen director. Tengo una hija graduada también de ahí.
He has been a good principal. I have a daughter who graduated from there.
Y él tiene muy buenas oportunidades para todos los estudiantes y ayuda mucho.
And he has a lot of great opportunities for all students, and he helps out a lot.
Los ayuda a motivar y a superarse y a ser unos buenos líderes también para la comunidad.
He also gets motivated to get ahead and to be good community leaders.
Incluso tengo otra hija que va a graduar y ha recibido 3 diferentes becas gracias a él.
As a matter of fact, I have another daughter who will be graduating. She has received 3 scholarships thanks to him.
Para mí es tremendo líder.
To me, he's a wonderful leader, a tremendous leader.
Es un tremendo líder, una gran persona y un gran principal que ayuda a los niños.
He's a great person. He's a great principal who helps out children.
Mi hija está muy contenta porque ha recibido becas.
My daughter is very happy because she has
aceptadas en 3 diferentes universidades.
She has gotten scholarships. She has been accepted to 3 universities.
Y yo quisiera que ustedes tuvieran un poco más de consideración para él seguir siendo un principal ahí en la Escuela San Marcos.
And I would like for you to further consider this so that he can continue to be principal at San Marcos.
Y hace muchos niños para de la comunidad. Mi hija es una líder traductora.
He has helped many leaders for the community. My daughter has been an interpreter also.
Y gracias porque él le da soporte emocional y también soporte para salir adelante.
And thanks to you, he gives them emotional support and support for students to get ahead.
Y gracias porque gracias a él académicamente están mucho mejor los niños, más confianza.
And thanks to him, the children are much better off academically, and they feel more confidence in themselves.
Y también nos ayuda a uno de padre a sentirnos más conforme y más consciente a acercarnos a él por cualquier problema que haya.
30 seconds.
And as parents, he helps us to approach and to feel that confidence to go to him for any problems there might be.
Y gracias a ustedes también por darse la oportunidad de escucharnos a nosotros como padre, como él también lo hace.
And thank you for listening to us as parents, just like Mr. Barnes does.
Gracias porque él es un gran líder para nuestros hijos.
Thank you, and he's a great leader for our children.
Yo estoy muy contenta con él.
I'm very happy with him. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Tom Condon. I'm the current chair of the Royal Pride Foundation, which was created under the leadership of Principal Behrens. And we share a mission that is just like yours, board members, to enrich the lives and to support the educational success of all students. That's part of your mission, and it's very similar in wording to ours. Since the last 5 years, we've raised over $3 million in partnership with the district to support our joint missions. How do we do that? We're focused on all students, not a small subset. The Academy Success will receive about $30,000 this year from the Royal Pride Foundation. We've given over $60,000 to Attitude, Harmony, and Achievement AHA program. We give financial aid to needy students for AP testing, fees and capping gown fees and other things that allow them to achieve the high school experience that everyone should have.
30 seconds.
And we've created the Entrepreneurship Academy, which is currently 40% enrolled in with students of color. So it's very diverse and broad. These things wouldn't have happened without Ed's leadership, and the loss of Mr. Behrens will undermine the progress that we've made, and I cannot actually help but think that our mission could be at risk if we lose the leader that we've had all these years. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brett Matthews, and I'm former president of the Montesino Union School Board. I sat in your chair. I thank you for your service and the time you've put to really get at the facts of this matter. There are a lot of emotions here, and I've been on a quest for facts. The data that you saw up there from Mr. Behrens is on the website, and I looked at that same data. That data shows an exemplary school, a model for the district, and something that we should all be proud of. It shows one school for all students. The second thing was I learned on the safety issue that Ed was reprimanded for the safety issues that have faced our school recently. I was shocked to learn that we didn't have a school district policy on these kind of violent issues. And in fact, there were 19 incidents across the country of this matter, and this represents the history of school shootings, and I'm just shocked that we didn't have this. And I hope, and I know you're going to have a task force, I hope that that gets rectified and have some thoughts on that. So my quest has been also to understand, is there a smoking gun here? Is there the personnel reviews? And I read the personnel reviews, and what I learned was the judgment in the reviews do not match up with the facts. One school for all students. So here are my lessons. I would pause. I was in your place before. I would pause. I would sleep on this important decision. I would also, the timing to replace a new principal of this caliber is probably near impossible given where we are. No one is perfect, and work with him and channel the energy in this room. Those who love Ed and those who might not love Ed, channel his energy in the room for the positive impact of this district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fay?
This, by the way, is the petition. Leadership comes in many. My name's Matt Fay. Leadership comes in many forms, and if you've seen tonight, Ed's leadership is really undeniable. He has integrity, he has vision, he has passion, and he's incredibly competent. There are 2,400 of us listed here that support this man. We are united, we are well informed, and we're objective. We're former school board members, we're educators, and a broad community, and we are all here to tell you that in our collective professional judgment, Ed delivers beautifully on the trust we put in all of you as our elected representatives to provide a high-quality education to our students. No leader is perfect, and a true leader recognizes there are always opportunities to grow and develop. Ed is just that type of leader. If the board and the superintendent truly believe that there's a deficiency to be addressed at San Marcos, then we ask that you don't kick Ed to the curb after 20 years. Rather, you treat Ed with the respect he deserves and is consistent with his incredible body of work by suggesting an appropriate improvement plan. And our challenge to Superintendent Matsuoka is to take this overwhelming community response as a reason for pause. Let's treat these past couple of weeks as a healthy conflict that has forced us to get to know each other better. In the spirit of cooperation and collaboration, let's combine our strong San Marcos community with your leadership development skills and further evolve this great leader in Ed Behrens.
Thank you.
All right, before we switch sides, if I could have the next 5 come over to stage left, and they are Simon Dixon, John Lee, Aaron Cavazos, Jeffrey Smith, and Holly Eubank. And over on this side, I believe we have Mr. Moores. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Superintendent Masako, my name is Gavin Moores. Fellow board members, good evening. I stand not to offer any more support than others have already done because they will do a far better job than what I have done so far. What I will bring into question is why we are even here tonight. We have all heard of the support and the accolades of Principal Behrens, and yet we find that the leadership of this superintendent, led by Mr. Masako, is bringing a call for some sort of action. Action that was woefully absent in the preparedness of some really key facts. There was no plan that had been addressed by this school board as the previous speaker had represented to you. There was no implementation because there was no plan. But in this situation, what we should have is a recognition of a mistake and an apology for the situation and, quite frankly, the embarrassment that Mr. Behrens has had to place himself in to ask for his own job. More disturbing to me is that this is all going to be debated in an executive session behind closed doors where we do not know the facts. We will not know how anybody votes. We will just be served the judgment to be delivered to us all to accept. What I would say for all of you who sit on boards who ask for political aspirations, and we need to know where those stand, this decision tonight will run with you for a long time.
Time.
So I urge for your support, or I urge for your recall.
Just one moment, Dr. Kiesis. I think Dr. Reed's just going to make one minor correction there.
Right. I just want to make sure that you know that we will deliberate, but we will be coming back with each response of each board member to the deliberation.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Cusis, and I wasn't expecting to speak tonight, so this is from the heart. And I'm a parent at San Marcos. I've had 2 graduates and a currently enrolled student in San Marcos, and I think I can speak on behalf of a lot of the parents that may not speak tonight. We moved to Santa Barbara in 2005, and shortly after you were faced with the decision of where our kids were going to go to high school. And I can tell you, based on recommendations of neighbors and friends, San Marcos wasn't on the short list. And we did our due diligence and really felt like compelled to meet with all the leaders and the principals at different schools and go to the orientations. And I was just really knocked out by Ed Behrens. He took the time, he met with us, he invited us back, and I can't tell you I could not be happier anyplace else. We saw the school prior to Ed being there, and the transformation when Ed took place.
30 seconds.
Our kids have just thrived there. I feel like they've done very well in a very racially diverse and just multifaceted place. You know, we've been lucky to have 3 kids that have done really well when they're challenged academically and have done great in sports and have been on those CIF academic teams, the best in the state. So I really feel we should all do our part and keep Ed. It's going to take big shoes to fill Ed's place here. Thank you.
My name is Jonathan Wygant. I have a daughter who is a junior at San Marcos High. I have 2 other children who are older, and when it was their time to go to high school, Santa Barbara High was way above San Marcos, and that's where they went to school. By the time my daughter, who is currently a junior, was ready to pick a school, San Marcos's reputation had increased dramatically, and that's one of the key reasons why she decided to go to San Marcos. That's all been because of Ed and his leadership over the last 20 years as assistant principal and now as principal. Ed has done some very wonderful things to bring inclusion and diversity to the campus. He hired a wonderful musician who came in and did a whole program, African American, who came in and did a program all around encouraging diversity, encouraging inclusion. Ed has this in his heart. That's what he's all about. Lastly, security. I encourage security to be addressed immediately, not with some blue ribbon panel, but with something that happens within 30 days and we've got new policy. I ask you all to look at the data that has been very skillfully brought forward. I ask you to look at the people in this room, in the 2,400 who signed a petition. And I also ask you to look at the passion and energy and positivity. I ask the board to immediately reinstate Ed Behrens to his position. Thank you.
That was a tough act to follow. Good evening, my name is Eric Volgaris. I am a graduate of PETA. I have also served on the San Marcos Site Council and served 2 years as chairman of the Royal Pride Foundation. All of us who joined PETA came from different life experiences, but I'm pretty sure we can all agree it was an incredible journey and I was honored to be a part of it. I will never forget the personal stories of tragedy and triumph that every person shared. I will always remember the laughter, the silence and the respect shown by the participants, and sometimes the tears that filled the room. And Ish, you did a phenomenal job running it. Thank you. PETA reaffirmed for me how important a quality education is for all students. It is the great equalizer. It is the most important and powerful asset anyone can possess in order to improve their lives. I believe it is Ed Behrens' singular goal to provide to all students at San Marcos the highest quality education possible.
30 seconds.
And the statistics referenced tonight bear this out. Ed wants to help all students achieve whatever goals they can set for themselves. Through initiatives such as PEAK, the Academy for Success, the Entrepreneurship Academy, and the Culinary program, Principal Behrens, his staff, and his incredible team of teachers make students or give students at San Marcos the opportunity, the programs, and the support to achieve their goals. I strongly urge you to retain Principal Behrens. Thank you.
Now, in that list of 5, I also have somebody where the handwriting looks like John Daly.
I'll do it again.
You already went? If you already went, because I did, I'm starting to realize that some slips are multiple, so I'm trying to put them over on the side. Thanks. All right, before we switch over, I'll have the next 5 for stage right, and that is Dana Huffman, Carol Flores, Rebecca Goodman, Abe Jahadami, and Francisco Lopez. And over on this side, I believe we have Mr. Dixon.
Hi, I'm Simon Dixon. I'm very familiar with this space because I come here every Sunday morning for church. And a week ago, I was talking to my pastor, and I said, I have the luckiest job in church because every Sunday, I get to stand at the front while the singing's going on. And church aside, I just get to look at this ocean of love. And I was thinking that tonight, you guys are the lucky ones because that is what an ocean of love looks like. And it doesn't happen by accident. I was thinking if my job was under threat, I'd have to fly in a family to fill the front row. Ed is very special to this school. And I just hope there's a teachable moment here. A lot has been said tonight, but you have the power to make the right decision tonight. And our kids have been watching politicians in Washington, D.C. trade on a currency of blame and insult. And you guys tonight can show that you answer to a loftier set of goals. Thank you.
Hi, I am John Lee, and I taught at San Marcos for 23 years and coached sports, and saw many principals come and go. And I have always been so proud of the San Marcos community, but never prouder than I am tonight. As the previous speaker mentioned, this is a spirit. Ed has brought a certain spirit to San Marcos that I've seen wane and rise through the decades. And I'm so proud when I go to a basketball game or I go to a football game or I walk through the campus and I see the atmosphere that is there. That's what our intention is here as a board or as educators, is to produce exactly that kind of spirit, that common royal pride, we could call it, and Ed is responsible. You guys know him. It sounds like you guys have worked with him,
And you know that he's a humble man, but very capable man with a rock-solid character. And that's a rare thing. I heard that the average tenure of a principal in the state of California is 2.4 years. People are coming through with other ambitions. You know, Ed is here because he loves this school, and he's proven it through the years. And that's a resource. That's a resource that we really should be very careful about squandering, because it's a rarity. And we've been lucky enough to have him in our presence and at the direction for all this time. And he can do 2 pull-ups. Not bad. Not bad.
Hello, my name is Holly Eubank. I'm a parent of San Marcos High School. I have a junior who's in the Entrepreneurship Academy. I also have an 8th grade daughter who's at La Colina and looking forward to attending San Marcos next school year. I'm really humbled that I'm here and I have no polished speech, so I speak from the heart. I worked with Ed about 10 years ago. I was there at San Marcos. I had gone to San Marcos. I worked at San Marcos as a career counselor for 10 years. I'm now at Santa Barbara City College. And my 10 years at San Marcos, I was so impressed with Ed as an assistant principal. I saw that he was invested in the school. We had principal turnover after principal turnover, and they were not invested. They were on their way out, and it was a really bad situation for our school. When Ed became principal, I noticed that the teachers were happier.
30 seconds.
The students were happier. The parents really got behind the school, and I can say that I am so proud. I am a cheerleader for San Marcos, not really, but as a parent, I am so proud of our school campus, and the students shine, and it's because of Ed. And thank you for all you've done.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Smith. Board members, superintendent, thank you for the chance to speak on Ed's behalf, or on behalf of Ed. I'm embarrassed to say I've never been to a school board meeting in Santa Barbara, but it's well worth showing up tonight for Ed, absolutely. My kids went to San Marcos. They transferred from another area school pretty much because of what they had heard about things like Kids Helping Kids and mock trial. And you just need to know one thing. You've heard it many times tonight, but our little chapter, my 2 students, my kids, they got into their first choice schools. If I were you, I would be paying attention to the statistics like you are, and this energy right here, but I'd also be paying particular attention to the most favorite teachers. And Eric Burrows and Jamie DeVries were those 2 teachers for my kids. They have shaped those kids for life. My daughter returned on her spring break
30 seconds.
last week to address the Entrepreneurship Academy. And she explained to them that it's very likely that mock trial and Kids Helping Kids are the reason that she's an intern at the Department of Justice. It is because of special leaders like Ed Barrett. Excuse me, a little choked up. This is pretty important stuff. I assure you, I know you have many difficult things to decide on. Ed Burrows is not one of them. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Erin Cavazos, and I'm a parent of a junior, and I have my older son also graduated from San Marcos, and I saw Mr. Behrens come in and that magical change we've been hearing about. I witnessed that as well. I'm also a preschool teacher for our school district, and I have seen in the last just 2 weeks that there has been a change in verbiage coming out of principal notes going home to families. One was from Mr. Behrens last week in dealing with all these issues, and one from the principal at the school I work at. And it was like, oh, look, the school district, they're coming up with language that's the same. That's great, because it's the start of a policy. And what we heard earlier is that as an employee and a parent, I haven't felt that there has been a policy in place. And because of recent unfortunate, ridiculous events, we need one. So I think this is not a problem that should fall on Mr. Behrens. This is a problem that needs to fall on the school board, on the superintendent, on the administrative office, on teachers like me.
30 seconds.
And all of our parents. It's all of us. And Mr. Behrens shouldn't take the fall, and we all need to step up and make a difference so it's not our kids. I don't get that text message I got yesterday, because that sucked. To get that text message from my son that he was in a lockdown, and to know I have to open my door to a whole room of preschoolers but not know what is happening to my son, is a horrible feeling. And knowing that there really isn't something in place made it even worse. I should have been in the know.
Thank you.
Okay, if I could have coming up to stage left to prepare, Bob Faulkner, followed by John Esteban, followed by Lane Wheeler, Chelsea Lancaster, and then Vanessa Ramirez. And over on this side, I believe we have Ms. Huffman.
Hi, thank you. My name is Dana Huffman, and I'm a parent at San Marcos. I have 2 current kids, and I didn't prepare anything, but Mrs. Reed, when you read the mission of the statement, 2 words kind of caught my eye tonight, and you said diversity and changing world. You know, this is a really changing world in the past 5-6 years, which social media has exploded, and as parents and educators, administrators, you know, we're learning how to deal with this. We don't know, there is no manual of how to deal when really bad things happen on social media. And instead of demoting the principal of what he did or did not do, I think we should use this as a teaching moment, since we're a teaching school, to kind of come up with ways to do this. Because next time this happens, the next principal, he may get fired because he did too much. There's no right or wrong way of dealing with social media issues. I really think we should learn from this and kind of educate ourselves further on how we need to deal with it, instead of demoting a teacher, principal rather,
30 seconds.
everyone always loves. So that's really all I have to say.
Can I have her 18 minutes or seconds?
No.
My name is Carol Flores, and I've been an administrator for a long time in our community. I currently work at UCSB. However, I was the dual enrollment coordinator for Santa Barbara City College from 02 to 09. When Ed Behrens was still an assistant principal, and I worked with a couple of principals that came in and out, we were trying to establish an outstanding dual enrollment program, which has been accomplished. I worked very closely with Ed to create a lot of the foundations for the academies, a lot of the articulation for ROP. He was an outstanding person to work with. I worked with all of the principals in all of the Santa Barbara School District and Carpinteria. And so I have known Ed for 16 years, and then I became a parent at San Marcos, not intending to take my daughters there, but Ed called me and talked to me about San Marcos and had us visit. And my daughters, my oldest graduated in 2014, and my youngest is going to graduate this year. I am hoping that you will take this opportunity as seasoned board members, administrators, to really look at what everybody has said. And maybe this is just an opportunity, instead of fighting, bickering, politics as usual, it's an opportunity to support each other, to strengthen your district, and to support Eric Behrens completely and keep him on board.
Thank you.
I'm Rebecca Goodman. I have a daughter at San Marcos High School. And from the information available to me, this decision to demote Mr. Behrens seemed hasty, reactive, unfair, and out of the blue. And the unfair and out of the blue part, I think it affects morale in a negative way for the other teachers, the other staff, for the parents and the students. Second point, at that February 5th meeting, the parents who spoke up, they all have a valid point of view. They all do. The angry parents didn't reflect my view, though. I went to the meeting to hear information. I didn't go to be angry, so not everyone there was there to be angry. I went there to hear information, and the impression that I got was that Mr. Behrens and the sheriff were doing the very best that they could with a lot of effort in what's a very complex, quickly evolving situation. Finally, I want to thank Ed Behrens and really all the Santa Barbara school administration for the following. My daughter, ever since she's been in kindergarten in Santa Barbara, has had all kinds of every year programs, movies, books, activities on the Holocaust and slavery and gender issues and anti-bullying, mental health. We should keep doing that. And still the violence continues, but I want to acknowledge that our school system, our district is doing that every year a lot.
My name is Abe Jahadami. I'm the athletic director at San Marcos High School. I've been there since 1987. I've been through a lot of principals, and without a doubt, Ed Behrens is the best we've ever had. I want to thank you, and I really appreciate you as a board, because you're here, because you care for the students, and you act in the best interest of the school district. And Ed Behrens, I've known him for so long. We go on rides, when we go to football games for a long time. He cares deeply for the students. He cares for the best interest of them, and he's a champion for underrepresented students. Thank you, Ed, for everything you do for San Marcos. Tonight, I think the Santa Barbara Unified School District and the San Marcos community, I think we've come as one. We've heard a lot, and I think we're all in this together, and I think we're going to make the best decision possible to keep Ed Behrens and become one unified school district. Thank you very much.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm speaking on behalf of Cosmale Lopez, who gave up his ticket for me. I just want to say, not only speaking to the school district, but everyone here who has eyes on me, thank you for sharing your story. You know, I've personally been inspired by Ed Behrens' work. You know, as a former student who's been suspended by him, as a former student, as a Royale and cousins who go there, you know, I kind of wish, you know, I think at the time you were the assistant principal at the time. But, and as a person who believes in the gray, you know, and after being inspired by hearing stories, yeah, maybe being fired and being demoted wasn't the right act, but I would suggest that everyone here to look to the person to your left, to the right, and to the people's stories who have not been heard, the people who have been disfranchised, who have been marginalized. Because who here, raise your hand if your daughter or your son who was in that list. Because that's what the issue is here tonight. I'm not even going to get into that. You know what? The list of a young man who made threatening remarks to young women and young gay men who are marginalized. So I want to hear people of those stories, of that background, because I see a lot of overlap, okay? But thank you for everything you've done, but I do believe that you could be more culturally proficient and get more training. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before I switch over, I'm actually going to call the last set of speakers over to stage right, and they are Esperanza Molina, followed by Aloy Zarate, followed by Vicente Garcia, followed by a group of three, which are Yesenia Ramirez, Esmeralda Perez, and Andres Gutierrez, followed by Linda Honigman, and last, Beatriz Flores. And over on this side, I believe we have Mr. Faulkner. Is that correct?
Hi, I'm Bob Faulkner, and I don't know what I'm going to say tonight. I'm an alumni of San Marcos. I actually graduated like 150 years ago. And I wish the principal that we had was like Ed. I won't say much about him, but he was not. My kids graduated from San Marcos. My elder son Kai was treasurer. My son Kay is a senior there now. They both did Kids Helping Kids. They put on a tremendous show over here at the Granada Theater, filling the place. With that money, I think, is what they used to beautify the school. It's more beautiful than it was when I went there. I don't know how anyone could be more for San Marcos than Ed Behrens is here. Another point, I sent letters to everyone on the dais here. mostly about Ed, other things too. I heard back from all of the school board members. If I sent a letter to Ed, he would have replied to me too.
30 seconds.
That's fine with you. There was one more thing. The video that was made, I haven't seen it. It sounds like an SNL skit, you know? It sounds like something that my group would have done. It sounds stupid, and it was meant to be a joke. I'm sorry, I don't know. I haven't seen it, okay? Not about the socials and such.
Thank you.
Okay. But it just seems like it's overkill.
Thank you.
Good evening, board. My name is John Esteban. I'm the Vice President of Future Leaders of America. And as a Chicano student, in this school district, I'm demanding a change to the leadership of our fellow high school that is culturally proficient, transparent, and that will meet the needs of my Latino community. We demand ethnic studies to be a graduation requirement for all high schools. We demand that no school resource officers be assigned at any school to prevent any further disruption to the learning process of our people. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Wheeler.
Good evening, my name is Lane Wheeler. I am a retired educator from the Santa Barbara School District, 38 years. I had the privilege of serving as president of the union for 6 years. I've attended about as many board meetings as you, Kate, and I take this opportunity to come out of retirement. I was wondering what issue would bring me down to speak to the board, and retaining Ed Behrens as principal at San Marcos is a significant issue. I'm here to talk to that issue tonight. My wife and I have 5 children that graduated from San Marcos. They have been in all variety of programs, sports, kids helping kids, music, and they've been successful in every effort, including my youngest daughter, who is a nurse in Santa Barbara and has been able to actually afford a home in Santa Barbara, which I'm extremely proud about, and that's due to the Pathway Academy, the Health Academy. It's amazing to me that when you have an issue like this, it galvanizes the community. I'm not sure the board intended to have community awareness be raised in this regard, but it certainly has come forward as Ed and in support of Ed as principal. This is an opportunity for you to represent the voters of Santa Barbara, the people who've elected you. The people here tonight are speaking out in favor of Ed Behrens, and I'm calling on you to represent them when you vote tonight in your decision-making process. I commend you for the efforts you have here. I hope we have this same kind of turnout for other significant issues like gun control, and I encourage you to do the right thing. Save Ed Behrens' job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chelsea, and I'm here to support the demands of Future Leaders of America, and as somebody who works with youth and works with marginalized students, primarily low-income single parents of color. There's been a lot of conversation about diversity here, and I really want us to think beyond diversity. I think diversity, the dialogue about diversity makes it really easy for us to check boxes and think about the ways in which we use quantitative data while ignoring the lived experiences of a lot of students. I respect everybody's lived experience in this room, and I respect the students and folks that have had a good experience at San Marcos High School. I will say in my experience working with youth of color, that's not their experience on the whole, and I just want to sort of frame a conversation that says diversity and inclusion asks who is in the room. Equity and justice responds, who is trying to get in the room but cannot? Whose presence in the room is under constant threat of erasure or marginalization? Have everyone's ideas been heard? Whereas equity and justice responds, whose ideas will not be taken seriously because they are not in the majority? And I want to be very clear that there are a lot of people in this room that cannot be here because they work 3 jobs to survive in Santa Barbara, because they don't feel supported in terms of language justice. And I know that we have translation here, and that's really important. But I just want to be clear that our spaces don't feel just to a lot of people in our community. I hope everybody in this room, if you care about justice in our schools, will show up for the ethnic studies movement, the gender studies movement, and disability studies movement, because that's how you show up.
I heard Vanessa Ramirez over on this side, or maybe you would like to speak on a different topic. I'm going to go ahead and put your speaker slip aside and move on to this side. And up here, the first two together are Esperanza, or is it two together? Esperanza and Melina, or I'm sorry, I called you Esperanza Melina, but Esperanza and Melina, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Esperanza Osegueda, and I am the youth organizer with Future Leaders of America. Thank you for having us here today. I am here to support our students and support those voices that are not being heard in this room right now. Like it was said earlier, there are many families that are not able to make this sacrifice, right? They're working multiple jobs, right, trying to put food on the table. And so I'm here to represent those folks. I'm here to help us support our students as well. I have a fellow student with me, Melina, and who is willing to, or would like to ask for a demand for this school board.
We would like to demand new leadership at San Marcos that is transparent and culturally proficient.
Thank you.
Next, I have listed Aloy Zarate, is that correct?
Hello, my name is Aloy. I'm a student at Dos Pueblos High School. I use they, them pronouns if you would like to address me. I would like to thank you all for being here and listening to our voices. And as a student, I'm here to talk more about implementing ethnic studies as a high school graduation requirement. Implementing ethnic studies would create a more safe environment at all the schools for all students, not just students of color, but white students benefit as well. Implementing this change would not just address the issue on Ed Barron's, but also create a long-term systematic change that would abolish the status quo, which is something that needs to happen across all the schools, not just at San Marcos. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia?
Good afternoon, dear board. My name is Vicente. I am a product of the Santa Barbara Unified School District. I'm very thankful for all the work that you've done since 1866. And just years before that, this community was actually Mexico, for those of you that didn't know. And a lot of us still remain here. With that said, more than half of the students that go to San Marcos High School are of Latino-Latina backgrounds. With that said, it is important to have cultural proficiency at San Marcos High School. Furthermore, to have cultural proficiency in these meetings. As we can tell, there's obviously a connection that needs to be worked on with the Latino community, evident by the turnout at this meeting. Furthermore, I am also here to advocate for ethnic studies in order to create these culturally proficient spaces for our students. I'm speaking on behalf of myself to ensure the security and the success of our students. Currently in San Marcos High School, only 38% of Latinos complete the A through G requirements, which means that only 38% of Latinos can apply to a university after high school. Is that fair? This is why we need cultural proficiency. Furthermore, at the Santa Barbara Unified School District, we only have 46% of Latinos completing the A through G requirements. Board, this is why it is important, it is critical to have cultural proficiency in order to ensure the success of our Latino community. Thank you.
Now, I have 3 students together, is that correct?
Yeah.
If you would want to introduce yourselves, please.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Andres Gutierrez. I am a member of Future Leaders of America, as well as a student who is a part of the Santa Barbara Unified School District. And I would like to use this platform to speak on behalf of students like us and the many organizations that we demand that ethnic studies be a graduation requirement for all high schools at the Santa Barbara Unified School District. We would like to implement this change in order to teach students about what their background is and where they came from so they have a better understanding of who they are. And by doing so, they will build better confidence in pursuing their future, having been educated on not only their background, but the background of all ethnicities to understand all cultures, not just the ones that are briefly explained in textbooks today.
Hi, my name is Esmeralda, and I'm here to talk about ethnic studies too. And as a Chicana, I feel like my culture isn't really appreciated over like what we learn at school, and I don't only benefit from it, so do my friends.
30 seconds.
And yeah.
Yeah, both students of color and those of European descent benefit from this because it creates a safer environment for everyone, decreasing threats, because this time it was young women, gay men who will be threatened next. So this is why we need ethnic studies and cultural proficiency at schools. Thank you.
My name is Linda Honigman. I am a former PTA president of Goleta Valley and DP. I was a vendor at the high schools between 2009 and 2015, and I live a couple of blocks from San Marcos High School. I'm very worried about the polarizing aspect of this event. I personally like Ed Behrens. I don't know him well. Obviously, he's very popular. We have no way of knowing if the reassignment, his reassignment addresses all or any of the concerns felt by many of the San Marcos community. We don't even know if those concerns have been fully heard from the Latina community, which now comprises the majority of students at San Marcos and the district overall. When I was PTA president, I realized there are really two schools within a school, and I was president of just one of them.
30 seconds.
The other parents, who I never saw, were those that only spoke Spanish, had challenges. Maybe they had to go to work, obviously, especially for meetings that start at 5 p.m. I have become more aware of how important it is to hear from all members of the community. So I ask that everybody listens respectfully to more of the students who have a different view from you. Maybe they will speak later this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, board. My name is Beatriz Pimentel Flores. I am the mother of two students who have been graduated from San Marcos, one who is a student and one who is incoming. A lot of folks in this room have said, I don't know all the facts, I don't pretend to know all the facts. Therein lies the issue. We weren't informed, and it wasn't Mr. Behrens' responsibility to keep us informed. That is something that comes from the Unified School District, from policies and procedures that were not in place. From policies and procedures that were not in place. I believe Mr. Behrens did the very best that he could with the resources he had. Those resources were not enough. This is an evolving world where things happen quickly. I believe he did the best. I do not always agree 100% with the administration or even with Mr. Behrens, but I believe that if the process is fair, the outcome can be swallowed. It can
30
be palpable.
seconds.
When the process is not fair, we cannot accept unfairness. And that's what's happening to Mr. Behrens. He has to beg for a job that apparently is amazingly well done. He needs to be given the decency of transparency, as well as us parents. We need more information, and we need to be human. Our humanity cries out, Mr. Behrens should be reinstated as our principal.
So I'd like to thank everyone for coming here today and for all of the speakers, everyone today speaking their truth. And we will now be moving into closed session to deliberate over the closed session items. I cannot tell you how long that will take. You're welcome to stay. When we are finished, we will return to open session and announce the closed session decisions. Thank you. So I just would like to thank you for your patience. The closed session item, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release. We have a motion made by Ms. Parker, and it was seconded by Mr. Paredes-Ulloa. The board voted to approve the reassignment of the principal of San Marcos High School to a classroom teaching position pursuant to Board Policy 43133. We need to report the order of the voting. We had 4 ayes. Dr. Jacqueline Reed, myself, is number 1. Ms. Sims Moten, number 2. Mr. Ishmael Paredes-Ulloa, number 3. And Ms. Parker is number 4. And Ms. Capps is a no. So we're going to go into a 10-minute recession and return back to our So we're going to return to the other closed session items. Item number 4, conference with labor negotiator, Government Code 54957.6, agency designated representative Carrie Matsuoka, superintendent, employee organization Santa Barbara Teachers Association, and conference with labor negotiator, Government Code 54957.6, agency designated representative Carrie Matsuoka, superintendent, employee organization California School Employees Association at the end of the meeting. I will now report out what we voted on in closed session, and I would like to announce that we have made 2 hiring decisions in the district, and the motion was made by Ms. Sims Moten and seconded by Mr. Paredes-Ulloa that Dr. John Vecchio will be our new Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. And we also had a motion by Ms. Parker and a second by Mr. Ishmael Paredes-Ulloa that Ms. Clancy Chu will be our new Assistant Principal at Goleta Valley Junior High. So moving on, we're going to move. There'll be more expansion on that with our Superintendent's Report, item C7.
So I would invite Dr. Vecchio and Ms. Chu to head over to that podium. And so as they're walking over, Dr. Vecchio is well known in our community. He has been principal of this school, Santa Barbara Junior High, and now recently principal of Santa Barbara High School. He's been a principal for Santa Barbara Unified for about 12 years total, and loves our district, his community loves him, and he's going to be missed at Santa Barbara High School. But we are excited to welcome Dr. Vecchio as a member of Cabinet, and he will be leading our Human Resources team starting July 1. So welcome, John.
Mike? Okay. Dr. Reed, fellow board members, Mr. Matsuoka, cabinet members, it's an honor and a privilege to accept the position of Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources for Santa Barbara Unified School District. I thank you for placing your confidence in me. 22 years ago, I stepped into this very campus for my first day of my career in education, and eventually went on to serve as the school's principal. And then 7 years ago, almost to the day, I stood before the board and accepted the position as principal of Santa Barbara High School. This district really has given me a great gift, and it's the gift of experience, because at every turn, the district has placed its confidence in me to lead something pretty profound. And through that gift of experience, I've learned a lot about leadership, about serving others, about the importance of building relationships, about how to make a big organization feel small. about how important educators are, and I learned how to cherish tradition while also making progressive change for the good of students. It is true that I will be leaving a place and a job I love, but I also have a profound love for this school district and this entire community. And I leave Santa Barbara High School knowing that I get to continue to serve students, families, and educators, only in a different capacity. I want to thank you for giving me once again your confidence, and I look forward to the journey ahead and working with all the great leaders in the superintendent and the cabinet. So thank you very much.
There we go. Thank you. So I too want to say thank you to board members, Superintendent Matsuoka and cabinet for making me an official part of the district. I feel very grateful for this position. I actually started my career at this very school, I think it's been 23, 25 years ago, as a math teacher. And I've been very fortunate to be at several different schools in our district and gain valuable experience with amazing colleagues. And I took a little hiatus about 5 years ago and decided it was time to kind of gain some more experience as a leader. So I spent some time in Carpinteria Unified and then most recently at the county office. But when I did that, it took me a while to come to that decision to walk away from the district, but I did it knowing that my goal was that I wanted to come back. And I wanted to come back and be a part of this district as an administrator. And so I am thrilled to be a part of the Goleta Valley community, to work with an amazing staff there, to support an amazing group of students, and to be back in the district that has really been my home. I was a student here as well, and so I'm very grateful for it and look forward to just moving forward with the leadership at Goleta Valley Junior High. Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
Let me make one other
Yes.
comment. So tomorrow has been designated as a national walkout day at many schools across the country, and our high schools especially, we have learned and really collaborated with the student groups that are organizing some of their own forms of protest. And so I know our principals and teams have been trying to understand what our students' wishes and goals are, so we will be out there with them, supervising them, supporting them, making sure that they're safe as they express their First Amendment rights. So it will be interesting to watch what happens not only here, but across the country. So proud of our students and the way they're going to be expressing themselves.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on now to item C8, board comments or correspondence. Ms. Parker.
And I'll just note that's C7. I have two things. One is that we all got a survey from the California School Boards Association about participating in a Master's in Governance program here. And I know that Mr. Matsuoka has said how valuable that can be, and former board member Mr. Harrion and other board members in the past have participated, as I have done. It's very helpful. Just remember that you actually have to fill out the survey to let them know whether or not you're interested. So if you haven't filled that out one way or the other, and I think that they want both ways, whether or not you're interested or not, and having that come to Santa Barbara County as a possibility, just to have the workshops here rather than having to travel for it, it'd be great to let the CSBA know. The other thing I want to be sure everybody has on the radar, we got our invitations. I hope you've gotten your invitations. I'm not sure yet. If you have, to the Santa Barbara County School Boards Association annual dinner. If you haven't gotten that yet, you'll get that within the next few days. So I just want to have you save it. It's Thursday, April 19th, starting at 5:30 up in Buellton. The guest speaker this year is Monique Limon.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Yes, Ms. Kepps.
Just because this item is about board correspondence, I would be remiss to not echo what Dr. Reed said at the beginning of this meeting. just how many people and parents and students and teachers we have heard from since we last met. It's a bright spot to a challenging time, but just to know and be affirmed of all these stories, and like Dr. Reed, I read every one of them, the stories and the experiences and the personal anecdotes and the connections in this community. It just affirms how central our schools are to the lives of the families that we serve, and I just want to acknowledge the 500 plus emails that came in and to all of us over the last 10 to 14 days. It was a powerful testimony to this community. Thanks.
Any other comments? Okay.
Got to make sure you speak up.
All right. I'm over this way. All right. Thank you. So now we will move to public comments.
Actually, there's no public comments. They're all actually on the items.
Oh,
no public comments.
okay. So we don't have any public comments. So we will now move to item D, acceptance of donations. Do I have a motion?
Move to accept with gratitude.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And it passes unanimously. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that any of the board members would like to pull?
No, and I'll go ahead and move to approve the consent agenda as listed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. So now we are going to have a series of public hearings. So I will now close the regular board meeting for our first public hearing. Santa Barbara Teachers Association Sunshine initial proposal to negotiate with Santa Barbara Unified School District, successor agreement for implementation of the 2018-19 school year. Mr. Matsuoka?
So we've received the Sunshine proposal from SBTA. We presented ours at the last board meeting. And so this is a step for the public to have any comments about the contract negotiations. We will be meeting with SBTA next week at the table.
We do have one request to speak on this item.
Okay.
Karen McBride.
Good evening, President Reed and members of the board and Mr. Matsuoka. I just want to make some really brief comments. I just wanted to remind you that we made a commitment to, like a shared goal, to get through the negotiations for the 2018-2021 contract and salary negotiations for next year in advance. And then I know that there's a desire to do the calendar 2 years out. So I don't want to belabor the point, but I just want to make sure that this negotiation is a priority, that you make teachers a priority or educators by making the negotiations a priority as we move through this next 12 weeks. So we have our negotiation on March 22nd, and after that we don't have anything on the calendar. So hopefully we can get, secure some dates and make sure that we get through this before the school year ends on June 8th. And I do really appreciate the fact that there have been some very unusual and challenging events that have happened in the community and the district, and we appreciate that has been a challenge that's delayed things. So just wanted to put that out there. 12 weeks passes really fast after the spring break. Okay, thanks.
Okay. That's it.
All right, we'll now move to public hearing number 2, Santa Barbara Unified School District Sunshine initial proposal to negotiate with Santa Barbara Teachers Association, Successor Agreement for implementation in the 2018-19 school year. Mr. Matsuoka.
So this is a formality to allow public comment, really both directions. So appreciate Ms. McBride's comments from SBTA, and it's an opportunity for any other public comment about the district's opening positions.
So at this time, we don't have any more public comment, so I will now close the public hearing item F2 and also move on to the action agenda. We'll move on to item number 1, or G1, approval of the Santa Barbara Unified School District's initial proposal to negotiate with Santa Barbara Teachers Association successor agreement for implementation in the 2018-2019 school year. Board, do I have any questions, comments? Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the Santa Barbara Unified School District's initial proposal to negotiate with the SBTA successor agreement for implementation in the 2018-19 school year.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. And it passes unanimously. Moving on to G2, approval of resolution 2017-18/36 in support of AB 2808. Ms. Jate.
Good evening, board members. Thank you. So before you, we have a resolution in support of AB 2802. And I'll speak a little bit more about this in the second interim, but this is basically the assembly person is trying to push through more funding for school districts to be more closely in alignment with the national average. And this would be a huge increase to all of our districts, all of the districts in the state of California. And we're in the CBOs of this state are in very much agreement with this, with the AB 2808. So we're asking you to support this bill that's going to the governor.
Board, any questions? Comments? Ms. Sesmo?
I would just ask, is this a one-time, or is this, if it should be successful?
No, this goes on the base grant amount.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Parker.
I know you're not a political stat person, but what are the chances of this actually passing?
I think, this is just my personal opinion about this. I think they're shooting pretty high, but I think it puts it out there and then maybe they're going to negotiate it. This is about a $4,000 increase to every base grade level span. That's a tremendous amount of money. I don't know how the state could afford it and what services would they have to stop doing to give this money. But maybe we could get somewhere in between, which is still good.
Thank you.
So board, any other questions, comments? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Moving on to G3. Board action on Student Discipline Education Code 48918, case number 2017-18-23. Ms. Wagner. I'm sorry.
In the case of number 201718-23, I move approval with the understanding that language will be corrected to reflect the fact that this is an expulsion with enforcement suspended for one school year, which ends 2019.
I will second the approval of the stipulated agreement.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Moving on to G4. Approval of KBZ Agreement, California Technical Education, CTE Facility. Mr. Matsuoka.
This is the first board meeting where we've had a chance to publicly share the really incredible results of a facility grant led by the Dos Pueblos High School team. It was Bill Woodard and help me out, Miss Carey. Who else was on that grant writing? Amir. and Emily and John Dent. And the results are pretty incredible. We could be receiving $4.2 million of state funds, and the match for this is, as you read, it was the replacement of the portables. So that was already in the budget. We're going to repurpose that to be the match, and now the vision is to build this entirely new CTE pavilion. You read that there was one proposal that did not get funded yet. The gap is $900,000, and we gave you a couple of possibilities of filling that gap. The window wall replacement could be a lot of savings. The timeline for this project is really fast. If we receive approval from CDE, actually it's OPSC in June, we have 12 months to deliver DSA-approved plans. And in the world of design, that's pretty fast. So the contract that's part of this action item is so that we can get KBZ moving on the conceptual design. There is a pause point, you noted in the narrative. At June, we'll hear officially. If for some reason there's a hang-up, we'll just stop the design contract with KBZ. But we want to get all that work done, because once we get the official green light, $4.1 million, we've got to get this into detailed design and get it out of DSA pretty quick. So really the action item is to approve the contract with KBZ as the architect. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Board, any questions, comments?
Great news.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move to approve, I move for approval of the KBZ agreement, California Technical Education CT facility.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Moving on to G5, approval of resolution number 2017/18-31, proclaiming Santa Barbara Unified School District's recognition of Cesar Chavez Day. Mr. Matsuoka.
So Cesar Chavez was, he was a visionary. He was a forerunner in so many ways and fought for the rights of farm workers in California up and down the state. And it's neat to read his story and what he grew up with and what he overcame. So this is an annual resolution, and I think it's very appropriate for our community. And you know, Santa Barbara County, it's got agricultural roots. And so I think for the history of where we live, this is a very appropriate resolution.
Any board comments? Yes, Ms. Parker?
So Cesar Chavez Day is actually March 31st, and we're on spring break when that happens. How do schools let the district know what they're doing to honor Cesar Chavez Day? Because it won't be on, obviously, it won't be on the 31st.
That's true. You know, let me consult with our assistant supes of instruction. You know, how much schools can do the Thursday, Friday going into spring break is always a little challenging, but let us get back to you with what activities our schools do in honor of Cesar Chavez.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Paredes, you go
I
ahead.
just want to say how awesome it is to have this resolution come to us. Again, it's every year. I love it. My grandfather, I come from a family of farmers. I'm descended from farmers. My grandfathers on both sides were owned farms, ran farms. My grandfather on my dad's side was part of the Bracero program for a long time, and for decades worked all along the Southwest, working in different farms in different capacities. But as we acknowledge Cesar Chavez's work in the field of farm workers' right, we also have to recognize that although he was the acknowledged leader of the movement, he was just one among many. Without De Los Huerta, Larry Itlian, the members of the UFW, and so many others, Cesar would have been less than a footnote in history. So I want to emphasize the importance of looking at history at all levels and ages through an intersectional and inclusive lens. To do otherwise is to really disregard and discard the efforts of and sacrifices of so many, to look at history and all its movements in silos as opposed to what they are, dependent on what has come before, what happened concurrently, and how they impact us today and tomorrow, influence how we learn, how we relate to each other, and neglects the story, neglects to tell the whole story. So as proud as I am to have a Cesar Chavez Day, I think it's also important to talk about movements and who makes up those movements, because there's so many pieces that we miss out when we pin all of the efforts, all the successes on one person.
Thank you very much for that. And I would like to add to that in that the multiple perspective that you're suggesting, but also it'd be really wonderful to learn elementary and secondary, the processes of how students are looking at this particular important person in history, but also that it's not limited to just around March 31st, that this history can be shared throughout the school year, and it doesn't have to limit itself to just one day, one moment, but it's great to have that acknowledged. So with that said, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the resolution number 2017-2018/31, resolution proclaiming Santa Barbara Unified School District's recognition of Cesar Chavez Day.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. We will now move on to approval of Resolution 2017-2018-34, approving the guaranteed maximum price, authorizing the contractor to proceed with construction, and adopting the plans and specifications for San Marcos High School's pool deck replacement project. Mr. Hetyak.
Thank you. Members of the board, Mr. Matsuoka, the board has approved numerous contractors and contract documents for leaseback contracts, but this is the first project where we are bringing you the guaranteed maximum price. This project is for replacement of the pool deck at San Marcos High School, and it will start prior to school being out. As soon as swim and water polo season is done, we will start this project in May so the school can get back into the pool early. That's why it's coming to you at this time. And because this is the first one, I brought this on an action agenda instead of a consent agenda, because it's the first time you've seen a guaranteed maximum price. We ask for your approval of the contract.
Board?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to G7, approval of Memorandum of Understanding between Point Loma Nazarene University and the Santa Barbara Unified School District. Mr. Matsuoka.
This is one of many agreements we have with colleges, universities that provide credentialing services, and Point Loma is one of our partners. So we ask for the board's approval of this. I believe it's a 5-year agreement.
Board?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Moving on to G8, approval of the proposed lease exchange agreement of leasehold properties between Santa Barbara Unified School District and the City of Santa Barbara. Mr. Matsuoka.
I think the board can appreciate the due diligence and the process to allow the public to understand the swap, the value of the properties, and I appreciated the pauses asked by certain stakeholders, and they had a chance to speak, and we had a chance to respond. And we heard Dr. Ebenstein's comments, I think it was last board meeting, saying they appreciated being listened to. So we are glad to finally bring this to the board for approval, and know that our conversations with the city administrator and staff will continue to resolve all of these, really tricky land use issues.
Yes, Ms. Parker.
I really do want to thank staff for slowing the process down and for opening dialogue with the city and for allowing the members of the public that came forward to come forward. I'm sorry Dr. Ebenstein isn't here because I know that this is something that he cares passionately about too. But I think that this has just been, it's been really positive to look at it a little bit more slowly. And so with that, I will move approval of the proposed exchange agreement of leasehold properties between the Santa Barbara Unified School District and the City of Santa Barbara.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Moving on to G9, positive certification of second interim financial report for fiscal year 2017-18. Ms. Jate.
Good evening. I know it's been a long evening, so I'll be as brief as I can. I guess the biggest, that we're here to present the 2017-18 second interim report of the Santa Barbara Unified School District. This has to be, it makes the constitutional deadline of March 15th, or the statutory deadline, and the actuals are as of January 31st. The biggest change that has happened to us since, in the community since first interim, is the Thomas event. And the Thomas event, due to mostly the mudslides, the county assessor auditor's office has gone out and reassessed those homes that are damaged. At least they've tried to. They're still unable to reach some of the homes to determine if they're full or partially destroyed. This has affected our budget, and because as you know that in 2017-18 this year we became basic aid, even though the state has not recognized us as such. Our property taxes have exceeded our entitlement, our LCFF entitlement. However, with the reassessment of the property taxes and the homes, we have lost property taxes. But you may remember a couple weeks ago, I told you that the loss was $2.3 million. I have met with the county auditor treasurer's office, and I have good news. The loss for this year is $680,000. However, in your second interim, this was published and to press and everything before I found out last Thursday. So it's good news, however, it's not reflected in this budget. So as I walk you through the budget, we'll talk about the ending fund balance and how running the new numbers affects our deficit spending and our ending fund balance. It's a little dark over here, so I'm going to have to work my way through this. I want to talk a little bit about the state and what the governor has talked about for 18-19 in the executive. Thank you, God, appreciate it. So the state's budget is coming in a lot higher than anticipated. It's about $2.9 billion, or 4% higher than projected. That's really good. Today, I did get a notification that February was not as high, but the governor's still planning to fully fund LCFF, which is 2 to 3 years early. So that increases everyone in the state of California's entitlement by doing that. The statewide median home prices have increased. This is good for homeowners, not so great for people who are trying to become homeowners. The unemployment has dropped by 4%, and so the overall health of the economy in the state of California is doing well. The unknowns are how the federal tax changes will affect our state, and also the legalization of marijuana. We don't know how exactly that's going to affect our state, whether there are some repercussions to that and the overall revenue. They don't know how this is going to play out. So with the LCFF being fully funded for 18-19, and of course we had the one-time RDA of $2.26 million, in 17-18, that reduction for 18-19 because it's one time, and the loss of property taxes for 18-19 due to the mudslide, because that loss carries over for a couple years until people rebuild their homes. So with that, in 18-19, we're projecting to fall back out of community funded or basic aid, as it was known. But I feel that we will be back in by 19-20, but minimally from the projections that I have done. I talked at length with the county, and they think about a 2% growth for us next year and 3% for 19-20 on property taxes is a good, solid estimate. We already spoke about AB 2808. As you can see, moving from about $7,000 per ADA to $11,000 or $14,000 would be awesome for California. However, as I've mentioned before, that is a lot of money for California to put out, and so, but I think it really sends a message to the state that we need more funding to do what we need to do in school districts. A few other things that I want to talk about, what's going on out there and the movements for more funding for the districts. Something that Santa Barbara Unified is a member of is the California School Funding Coalition, and they are advocates to get more funds into the districts. And so they're pushing bills to get through. But one thing that I'm really interested is in the special education funding. When special ed students came into schools back in the 70s, they promised that they would deliver 40%. Well, they've never delivered more than 10%. So they're really pushing now for the state or the federal government to pony up and give us the full 40%. Also, another part of the movement is to equalize the funding in California per student for special education kids, that we are one of the lowest funded SELPAs in the state of California. And no one has ever been able to answer the question, why is that? Why are we 500 and some odd change per kid when someone else is 1,500 per kid? I have no idea. No one can answer my question about that. No one knows how that all panned out. So they're trying to equalize that. Yes, Ms.
Yes, I just had a question on that. So in that same paragraph that's on page 2, I'm assuming where we
Yes.
are, right?
I'm sorry.
So where we're saying the 88 is decreasing throughout the state, but the number of our special ed students is growing. Is there a reason behind that, or?
So special ed is funded on your total district ADA. So if you have 13,000 kids, you get $500 per 13,000 kids. But what's happening is our overall ADA is declining. And so we're getting less money, but that doesn't mean our kids with special needs are declining. So it's disproportional.
So are they taking that into account as you're looking at the movement to get increased funding for those kids?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if they're planning on changing to fund your actual students or keeping it in ADA, overall district ADA. I don't care how they determine the funding, but I think it should be equal. I don't think one district should get $500 or one SELPA should get $500 and the other one $1,500 per kid.
There's no basis for that.
There's no basis.
Right?
In my opinion, there's absolutely no basis for that. So we're hoping that there's been a real push for these new funding, to get the 40% from the federal government and to get the SELPAs equalized. Okay, so let's move on to page 3 and the changes in the revenue. I've already spoke about the LCFF from first interim to second interim. As I said, that property taxes, that's where that decline is right there. So that will come up about 1.6 million. So that and we'll make that adjustment, and we probably already have made that adjustment. If not, we will make it for the correction in the property taxes. There's some federal funds that came in. This is our MA, and as I mentioned before, the federal revenue for MA is very sporadic, and it takes a long time to get, so we don't book it until we receive it. So that went up. In our other state, we had a small increase due to the lottery funding. It went up $2 per student. And for our other local, you can see that we've had some donations, and then we got some insurance funds for the Parma Flood and Civic Center, and then the Beginning Teacher Support and Assessment Program, BITSA. Moving on to salaries and benefits, the net decrease is due to certificated employee that was paid out of restricted funds that should have been paid in unrestricted funds, and classified positions left unfilled for months, and the costs in the corresponding relating to these positions. So the budget, the benefits related to that. Books and supplies, we purchased some Chromebooks, Summit Learning Programs, Spanish curriculum, and some proceeds out of Civic Center. Services, we put in the budget, what you approved last board meeting was the demolition of the Parma School building. Temporary services for like custodians and paraeducators, and because sometimes we can't fill those positions when people are out or on workers' comp. The cost of involved in the review of the Human Resource Department, and some more contracted services through HR and membership fees. The contribution went up slightly. We had a funding model. What we get from the SELPA is a funding model, and it has your costs, your revenues all on it. And we didn't get one of those until after the budget was completed. And we did have an increase in funding for the special ed. However, they had not accounted for, they also get property taxes, and they had not made the adjustment due to the mudslide. So we didn't feel at that point it was worth going in and opening the budget up again and putting the new funding model in when we didn't know what the net effect is. So as soon as we get a revised funding model from SELPA, we will make that adjustment for the estimated actuals that go with the adopted budget. Page 6, last time we spoke about the restatement and the audit adjustment. That has been corrected, and so that is the big difference right there between first interim and second interim. But the result of the operations, this is what I wanted to talk about. So this is not really changed. It looks like it went up by almost $2 million, but remember, that's with those property taxes out. So that increase, we did increase our deficit spending once you make that correction by about $300,000. So that difference will end up being about $300,000. The graph there on page 6, that just shows where we spend most of our funds, and it's in salaries and benefits, which end up mostly in the classroom. On the restricted side, not a lot of change there. We did have a lot of increase in our local revenue, and this is due to the site and district donations. And also there was, we get a little bit of money from the Goleta RDA, and they sold a property. And so my fellow CBO at Gallo texted me and said, "You got money coming." So that was nice. And then the next day, voila, there it was. So that was nice. Supplies, salaries and benefits, and the restricted side, we had to reallocate budget from salaries to services due to the paraeducators. I spoke about this a little bit earlier with, we budget to hold paraeducators as if we were going to be able to hire them. When we can't hire them, we go to a service that gets them for us, and so we take it out of the salaries and put it into the services. So that was one of the reasons why the net decrease. Then we have an increase due to books and supplies, and the sites are also getting down to the end of their year, and so what they plan to hire someone or have hourly people working, they're not, so they're converting it into books and supplies and buying stuff from them, and so they decrease salaries and benefits and then goes into services and operations or books and supplies. This usually happens at second interim. They're refining their budgets. And then in other expenditures, we had a purchase of a special education van and grounds improvements for the edible forests that are going in. So on page 9, this is the restricted side of the budget. So we're ending up with a fund balance of 1.2, almost 1.3 million. This is mostly on the site donation side. So when the district budgets on the restricted side, if we have federal funds, we have $1 million going in, we have $1 million going out. We always budget, so we're projecting to spend the entire amount. It doesn't necessarily happen in the donation accounts on the site side. They may have a lot of money coming in, but they're not spending it. So most of that 1.2 is on the site's individual donation accounts. Almost every site has a donation account in our budget. On page 10, you can just a graph on where our funds are, reserves are. The light purple is the Fund 17, our special reserve. The white is restricted, and the dark purple is unrestricted. On page 11, we are looking at what is our projected ending fund balance of $12.4 million. It's up at the top third of the page, but that will improve because of the property taxes that I mentioned earlier. We have $3.8 million in one-time mandated funds that we are saving and projecting to spend in the next year. And then we have a reserve, our economic reserve of $6 million. And so we end up with a reserve amount of, I had this memorized earlier. We have 17-18, we're expected 7.3, and 18-19, 5.2, and 3.3. And this will only get better when we put the property taxes in there. As you can see on page 11, we are declining still, and that projection has not changed. Good news on page 12, our unduplicated pupil count increased by 146 count. That's good. Usually we've been declining. Well, we've been up and down, and we're trying to figure out how to get this data into the district, and I think last year we did a pretty good job of having everybody complete the free and reduced form. We still have to do some work on how that actually works and how to collect them best, but we think that's the way to do it. On page 13, here's, you saw this last year, our last interim, that we talk about the property taxes and how when we go basic aid, we start to lose supplemental, blah, blah, blah. And on this page, you see in the red, the supplemental, it shows that it's a negative 9 million, or 900,000, sorry. That's because that's where I took the 2.3 out. Because since the state has not recognized, this is interesting. So the state does not recognize us as CF, community funded, so we get supplemental, right? So at first interim, that was 1.3 million. So then when you put the 2.3 million in, it comes out to a negative 900,000. So when you look at your fellow basic aid districts that surround us, they don't have a loss this year because they don't get supplemental. Now, when it rolls into July 1, all that loss will roll into their secured. So they'll see it in their secured as we see it in our secured. But we're the only ones that are going to lose this money. So I have been writing people and asking for help on getting that money back because they're talking about having the governor backfill the basic aid community funded districts. So I have written and pleaded our case. I pleaded it high because at that time it was 2.3 million, but I have not heard back from anyone yet. So tomorrow, that's the first thing on my list to say, hey, don't forget us because we are basic aid. No one just has declared us basic aid or community funded. Multi-year projections, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking pretty good. We have, as I said, 7%, 5%, 3%. We are eating away at our general fund reserve, but a lot of that is the one-time funds. And so we're going to have to start looking at that and see how we can slow that process down a little bit. But as we do that, we are also putting savings away in Fund 17, because if you think about it, one day we lost a lot of money. And as we become more and more community funded, we need to have a better reserve to weather those times. Maybe it's not a mudslide, but we do have lots of fires.
Mr. Tagg, can I insert?
Yes, sure.
In speaking with Anthony Reyna in Montecito, they were projected to gain 4% assessed valuation growth. That's what they built their budget on. In one day, it went down 17%. They're dropping 13%. So they went from +4 to -13. So that's why we're hearing about our partner district. You know, they have budget challenges. And, you know, I've always heard the stories, you should have a certain amount saved away as a basic aid or community funded district in case something happens to property value. And I always thought, what could ever happen? Whoa. It happened literally in one day. So the importance of saving as you become a basic aid district where your local property values affect your income, who would have thought, in your current fiscal year. So it's important to save. I'm glad that we're saving, but we also have, you know, we have a lot of other things to take care of too.
I just want to chime in on that because I did speak to Dr. Alzina about what would happen in Cold Spring, and Montecito was running with a very large reserve. Montecito, Cold Spring was running at the 5% bare minimum for a small district, and absolutely devastated and really counting on the state coming through to help them. And whatever, you know, the unique geography of Montecito is what it is. We are so susceptible to fire, and it had never really crossed my mind that, you know, we have lost 500 homes here in one go. And so this really was eye-opening in terms of, as a community-funded district, how important a larger than average reserve is, and thinking about what that needs to mean so that we can protect ourselves.
And if I can add one thing, we were at the SBO meeting, which the county holds, which all the CBOs go to. They said, they posed the question, how many of the districts here have a policy with a fund balance percentage larger than the 3%? 3 of us raised our hand, and I was proud to be one of those 3. It was me and Virginia Alvarez, and somebody else, I don't know what district she's from, because I don't go to those meetings very often. But what they do at Cold Spring, at Montecito, they figure out their entitlement, and they know what their CF is. So that's what they say they want as their fund balance, the difference between that. And they've got about $17 million in their fund balance, which they're probably very happy they have today. And it'll probably take a while for them to build some of that back up. So on page 15, there's just some of the changes that were in the multi-year change, the changes that had happened in the multi-year projections from first interim to second interim. So these are the ins and outs that explain the difference between first interim and second interim. I've never done this before, but I thought you may want to see how the assumptions change so rapidly. And even as we speak, I already know these 18-19s are, because things are coming in with staffing and things change very rapidly. But that was the best guess at that time. So we have a positive certification. We're doing well. And so I hope you approve the second interim budget, unless there are any questions.
Any other questions or comments? No. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right.
What are the public speaker cards about?
H5.
H5?
Yes.
Can I suggest to the board,
That we
since
move to
it's
H5?
late and we
Yeah.
have some parents here, let's jump to the task force on schools, student safety. And then let's see how much energy we have for items 1 through 4. Okay.
So, Task Force on School Climate and Safety, a recommendation, Mr. Matsuoka.
So this report/recommendation has been a compilation of listening to really a lot of different people in a lot of different settings. And as I listen to all of the dynamics that are going on, both locally and nationally, school climate and safety is not, there's not one answer to the question. So as I thought about it, and actually it was Dr. Reed and I were literally in the design room just kind of thinking about all the factors, and that diagram that is on the first page, we actually co-constructed that in the design room. I see 5 really important circles. You can see them there. I don't need to repeat them. I like the fact that they're overlapping because it's communicating that these domains are connected, that public safety is connected to mental health, to the issues around technology. The title of Education About Bias, that's a placeholder. That's probably not something people would remember. So we'll come up with a better descriptor for that. But the partners that we've listed there very clearly is Just Communities and Anti-Defamation League. Those are 2 partners that we believe will be really helpful about educating all of us about bias and racism and misogyny. The process that we've outlined is we need to build a core task force. We think it's going to be about 10 to 12 people. If the task force gets too big, it becomes unwieldy as a committee. But what we do see is sort of this small group, large public forum rhythm. So we plan on presenting a forum in each of those domains, and after we get the expert or the lead for that, we actually want to design a forum where it's got some education about the expertise, but it also has an opportunity for the community to weigh in and give us their input and all the ideas that are coming from our community. And you can see some of the people that we've identified. Dr. Wagenick did have a meeting with Dr. Shane Jimerson, he's a local resource, and he is an expert in school safety, right in our backyard. And we believe, we're going to keep looking for the right people. They could be local, they could be national. So we're still searching through, trying to identify some experts in those 5 groups. We also believe we listed some stakeholders that are not part of a circle, but that we believe we need a stakeholder rep from the parent community and also from our teacher community, our teacher staff, because when we have 800 teachers, they are kind of the front line in terms of developing school safety plans. So that's the presentation. Would welcome any conversation, and I believe we have some public comments.
I do have some public comment on this issue. Jonathan Wagner, he may have left. Okay. And I have Jacqueline Inda. Also, Mr. Gabriel, we don't yield our time to one another. So are you Mr. Lasatera? So we don't yield our time. So do you want to speak on your behalf? So we're just going to give her 3 minutes to speak. Okay.
No worries, it's late anyway. Board members, my name is Jacqueline Inda, and I'm here with 2 different hats. I'm here with the Coalition Against Gun Violence and the Santa Barbara Response Network, which go hand in hand with the topic of safety. The Coalition Against Gun Violence is working with the Santa Barbara Youth Council and other elected bodies throughout the region to address policy changes in community What we haven't quite done is address policy changes when it comes to gun safety conversations within our school districts. And I believe that that's something that we need to continue to look at. There are some state and federal laws. There are also some suggestions from the Department of Justice of how schools need to change and amend policies to implement curriculums and modify things to include the conversations of gun safety so that they're properly disseminated in the community and the parents that receive the information are properly educated about gun safety and storage. That is one of the very first steps. Obviously, we know that there isn't the key magical steps when it comes to safety, but the Coalition Against Gun Violence has studied and researched this effort throughout the nation. And we know very well not only what local jurisdictions do that are partners in education, but also what the DOJ is recommending when it comes to prevention in schools, and what the communities should do to stand beside our schools as well. So we hope that when you're looking at this task force that you include the Coalition Against Gun Violence, because we do need to talk about gun safety in our communities and within our schools as well. And of course, hand in hand with that is the conversation of the Santa Barbara Response Network and the mental health issues that we all face. And we need to continue to see that as a forefront in all of our discussions when it comes to safety. And so I'm here just to encourage you to incorporate those two organizations as part of this task force, because the two organizations work really closely hand in hand, but mainly because there are some policy changes that need to occur. And locally, we can do that by not reinventing the wheel, not getting parents upset, not getting community coming up with these brilliant reinventions of wheels, but to look at what we're doing nationally to address these issues. And again, it's not the end-all, solve-all, but it's the beginning of dialogue that will change policies that will then impact our communities. So thank you.
Thank you.
So do we have any other comments, board, questions? Ms. Capps?
Yeah, thank you. I'm pleased to see this. I'm really glad that we're moving forward. And I want to just lend my support. I think it's well constructed, and the groupings are the right ones, I believe, and I'm so glad and grateful that we have this national expert on school safety here in Santa Barbara at UCSB. It's quite a wonderful coincidence, and to take as much advantage of that expertise as we can. I expressed this to Mr. Matsuoka. I think that, and I said this sort of in our last board meeting, so much has been learned about this that I hope that we can really draw upon expertise and national expertise. I know it would be probably unrealistic to have a national expert participate on a daily task force, but I think even, drawing in from other districts that have gone through actual serious incidences and what they've learned, so much has been learned in a short period of time on a very new area of focus for schools. And so I just think that's one of my emphasis, is to not think that we need to invent this all and to draw upon expertise. And I also think that if we're trying to draw in forums, I think that would be a valuable interest to the public to actually get it to show up and get engaged. If say, for example, I know the school district from Columbine is now very active in this space, or from Sandy Hook, or from these other touch points, and are probably quite willing and part of their programming to share their experiences. And I think that would be something that the public would be more apt to participate in out of curiosity and interest. So that's point number one. The second is to make sure that this task force has teeth, that it has action. When we hear the word task force, and I think it was raised in public comment earlier, it tends to be sometimes, especially on a topic that is so humongous as this one, it can sort of fall by the weight of its own self and not turn into anything of substance and actionable. So I just will be looking to help in those two ways, to connect on the national front and to also make sure that there are very specific things that come out of this, even if they are small. And I just want to bring up an example that I shared over email, but I was at a parent meeting at Roosevelt last night, and the principal was talking about new ideas that they're coming up with, having their yard duty adults who are part-time, very part-time, wear colored backpacks that would have emergency materials in the backpacks, but then identified more easily for, you know, a 6-7-year-old in a time of chaos. So think small things and huge things, I hope are a result of this task force. And I applaud the effort and, if anything, just want to get it going. So thank you.
Ms. Parker. I agree with points that Ms. Capps has brought up. Just in terms of who is on the team, we're hiring a district public safety officer. I really think it's important that that person be part of this conversation. And so I hope you'll think about that because they need to implement what they can as we go along. I do really appreciate, though, and I wanted to call this out, that as much as there will be forums along the way, and you talk about it being in the rhythm of the school year, that even as you're going towards a winter, a December presentation and a list of recommendations to the board, that things that need to change will be changed immediately along the way. And I think it's really important that we as a board are constantly updated on that, and that we implement what we can as fast as we can. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Now, the big question is, do we have, if we go back to H1, is Angela Shields here? Then we definitely want to bring you on down. We're going to move on to H1, Kids and Nutrition presentation, Angela Shields, Harvard University. Ms. Parker, did you want to introduce her?
Welcome. And I know that you were coming from back east, is that correct? Is it right that, as I recall, because we had this conversation by email back in the fall, are you based back east? Is that correct?
Yes, thank you. Cool.
So I'm glad that you were able to actually get here.
Yeah, this is actually my spring break, so it worked out nicely. She lives in Santa Barbara. We both went to undergrad at UCSB, which is where we started this program. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm Angela. I'm a first-year graduate student at Harvard studying environmental health, and this is Michelle. She's working in the medical field here in Santa Barbara. And back in undergrad, we started Kids and Nutrition when we were sophomores in college. I'll start. So the purpose of this presentation, why I wanted to come down here, is that we've been working in the Santa Barbara Unified School District for 4 years now, and we met sophomore year, and we were both very passionate about preventing the rising rates of chronic disease in America. So very idealistic undergrads, and we really wanted to take action. So we started this program with the intent to empower the younger generation to lead active and healthy lives through supplemental nutrition education. So our main cause initially was to prevent chronic disease and public health issues, but as time went on, we started to realize that there was an important link between nutrition and climate change mitigation, which I'll talk about later, which is the main purpose of this presentation. So Michelle will talk a little bit more about our curriculum.
So just a brief overview of the curriculum. It's a 7-week, 7-lesson-long curriculum. Each lesson runs for 1 hour, and it covers a different nutritional topic for the week. For example, like water and sodium is the first week, second week is fruits and veggies. And what we do is facilitate groups of 4 or 5 university student volunteers to carpool to a local elementary school in whichever university they're volunteering at. And with supplemental materials like visuals and games and also physical exercises, they teach the kids about all these different topics. And at the end of each lesson, there's also a consentive challenge, which allows them to bring what they learned in the classroom to home and practice with their parents, which also helps with parent involvement. So research shows that 35 to 50 hours a year is, research shows that kids need about 35 to 50 hours a year of nutrition education to increase or actually make behavioral changes happen for kids. But also we're only getting 3.4 hours a year, which is not enough. So we align the the KIN curriculum with the California state standard for nutrition education for grades 1 and 2, and made it a priority to make sure that they match up.
So I'll kind of go over some of the growth in the past 4 years in Santa Barbara specifically. So in terms of education, we have educated in 16 schools in the area, and of those 16, 7 have been in Santa Barbara Unified. We have educated in 92 classrooms, so over 2,000 students across Goleta and Santa Barbara, and within Santa Barbara Unified, 44 classrooms with around 1,000 students over the past 4 years. And a huge objective of this presentation is that we'd really like to get into the other 6 schools that we're not in. So I believe we are in Adelante, Peabody, SB Charter, Washington, Adams, Harding, and Monroe. But there's 6 other schools that we'd really like to start teaching in. In terms of operations, in the past 4 years, we've had a lot of student interest at UCSB. So over 600 student applicants have applied, and unfortunately, we've only been able to take 390 of those to volunteer in different classrooms. So we do have a surplus of students that are willing to come in and volunteer in classrooms. We just don't have enough classrooms to do so. In terms of outreach, so we also educate the school campus. So we have tabling activities. We put on this annual event called Produce First, where we pair with the AS Food Bank and we offer the student body free produce as well as education. And then we also have these installations in parks to kind of get the student body more active and engaged in terms of how you can change your diet for your health and also for the environment. And we also are starting to look more into community outreach. So Michelle will actually be tabling at the Santa Barbara Earth Day this year, so be on the lookout. And we've also tabled at various other fairs around Santa Barbara. So we've also conducted research on the program. I did this for my honors thesis research my senior year of undergrad. And I paired with a professor and we created a pre-post test for before and after. So the first component was health knowledge and the second component was food preferences. So basically we were trying to gauge whether or not after the program there were significant differences before and after. And we actually did find significant differences in both sections. So by the end of the program we found that students were choosing healthier options in terms of food preferences, and they also had better objective health knowledge. So that was awesome, but we're still continuing to revamp our research because there were some confounding variables we need to adjust for. So in terms of regional growth, so all of that was local Santa Barbara growth, and after we graduated from UCSB in 2016, we expanded the program to 5 other regions in California. So we started up one in Santa Cruz, LA, Irvine, San Diego, and Berkeley. And then when I moved to attend school at Harvard, we started up 2 chapters this year at Northeastern and Tufts. And we're also looking to start up chapters at Harvard, hopefully Boston College, BU, and MIT. But that's more in the future. So hopefully the Northeastern and Tufts will have classrooms starting up next fall. And then in terms of Santa Barbara, we're actually starting up lessons to begin at the Goleta Boys and Girls Club starting spring 2018. So in just a couple of weeks. So our financial model. So KIN is offered free of charge to local elementary schools, and that is done through various grants and awards from UCSB and also the local community. So the Donald H. Strauss Foundation actually awarded us $10,000 to really get this up and running, and the program is extremely cost effective. It only costs like around $400 to start up a chapter and to keep it sustainably running. That's for an entire box of materials that can be used for every classroom depending. So we have 3 material boxes, so that was 400 times 3, so $1,200 to run a chapter here at Santa Barbara annually, which is pretty cost effective. So our objective internally is to ensure financial sustainability of the program through facilitating stronger partnerships with the Santa Barbara Unified School District, with other local organizations. We want to really raise awareness of what we're doing so we can ensure sustainability of the program moving forward.
Initially, we developed KIN to prevent public health issues, current ones, such as the rising prevalence of heart disease. But as KIN started to expand into different schools, we decided to also incorporate climate change and its strong correlation to our current food system. And
So a sustainable diet is a pattern of eating that promotes health and well-being and provides food security for the present population while sustaining human and natural resources for the future generations. So we decided to incorporate this into our curriculum because it was recently highlighted in the scientific report of the 2015 dietary guidelines. Unfortunately, it was omitted due to various reasons, but we find it really important to start teaching the younger generations in America about sustainable diets. I think it's great that this was included in 2015 because I think moving forward, sustainable diets will be on the agenda at the next Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee. So what we're doing, so I've teamed up with the Planetary Health Alliance at Harvard and the Harvard Kennedy School to develop this planetary health pilot lesson. And before I get into it, planetary health is defined as the health of human civilization as well as the state on which it depends. So the Planetary Health Alliance has an ambitious agenda of getting planetary health education every single grade level up until students graduate from high school. So they wanted to work with KIN. So KIN and the Planetary Health Alliance, as well as the Harvard Kennedy School, are working to develop this experimental pilot lesson to see how well it will go in an elementary school setting. So the main objective would be to introduce sustainable diets and agriculture within the realm of planetary health, within the existing KIN framework that we had previously talked about. So we actually finished creating this pilot lesson, and this will be implemented at the Boys and Girls Club in Goleta in 3 weeks. So we'll see how that goes. We're planning to conduct a pre-post test to kind of test the efficacy of this pilot lesson to see if it was effective. But there's only so much you can do with education. Education is necessary, but it's not sufficient, and it needs to be in tandem with access and also policy change. So the main reason why we're here is that we are trying our best to educate these students on things that we find are very important, but I also think these students need to have access to sustainable foods in the cafeterias, and I also think there needs to be policy change in order to incorporate planetary health into existing standards. So what Michelle and I are doing, at least for number 4, state policy change, is that we're creating a public comment to submit to the 2019 revision of the California Health Education Framework, hopefully to kind of introduce the incorporation of planetary health at each grade level, or at least first grade. So yeah, basically that's why we're here. We wanted to kind of highlight what we've been doing in the past 4 years in Santa Barbara, kind of highlight future directions in the field of planetary health, and also kind of facilitate a stronger partnership moving forward as we care a lot about the students here at Santa Barbara Unified. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, Ms. Parker?
I'll try to be brief, but the work that you're doing is, well, thank you. I mean, it's amazing that you were doing this as undergrads to start.
Yeah, it's all volunteer.
And so it's pretty cross-disciplinary. I guess one of the questions I have, what were you studying? Public policy, environmental science? What department was this coming out of at UCSB?
That's right. So both of us were biopsychology majors. She actually wanted to be a nutritionist, and I wanted to go to med school. So that's still in the playing field, still trying to feel it out. But right now, I'm focusing on environmental health at Harvard, which is at the intersection of this.
So when you talk about these 600 volunteers, those are just out of UCSB for the local schools.
Yeah.
Were you targeting a particular department there, or was that just across UCSB? There was that much interest in students coming in?
That's the great thing about food, because I feel like everyone can connect with food and nutrition. So we marketed to a lot of pre-med students and a lot of environmental science students, but we also marketed a lot to Chicano studies and also the Asian American studies as well. So we had a lot of people on our director team who were more cultural studies, which was really interesting. Because they wanted to highlight nutrition in a more cultural context, especially in Santa Barbara, where there's a large demographic of Latino people. So that's part of the reason why we wanted to keep it multidisciplinary, because there's many ways that food can be viewed. And we wanted the university students to connect with a huge aim of what we do is we try to get the younger kids to think nutrition's cool. So we have these college students who come in and they play games with them, and they kind of look up to us like we're brothers and sisters, and I feel like that's a way to inspire the younger generation. So yeah, there wasn't a specific department, but it was a lot of science-oriented students.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And there's a lot of people to connect with in the district, and I'm sure fellow board members will have some comments too.
Yeah, just thank you. This is I didn't know about this program. I'm very pleased to know about it, and I appreciate you staying so late. And I'm so supportive of the work and the mission, and the fact that you're providing this service at no charge to the district is just incredible. My question and or request for the future is, are you connected with our our director of food services program? And if not, can we help that? I think it would be great. Well, I'll let you answer before I editorialize.
So when we first started this program, I was in contact with, I believe, the food services director, who helped pass me on to some teachers. So Nancy Lusk was actually the first grade teacher at Washington to really adopt our program, and I think he forwarded me to her. But yeah, we don't have a strong connection.
Great, because I could see, thank you. I mean, my son eats the food every day, and I think it's so important to connect this education with what they're actually getting in our district, which we can be really proud of, and and especially in the last year, a huge transition into plant-based meat. So it would be ideally, and again, I'm not trying to tell you how to run your program, but there's some resources that I think could even help reinforce it even more, just right there at the lunchroom, and a very willing and active food service director and her team, who I think just could really bolster the program.
I completely agree, because KIN is a supplemental nutrition education program, so we really want to cater to the districts that we're working with.
As well as a lot of gardens that already exist, and maybe you're already doing that piece of it too, but to connect it to what they're seeing every day, so it's not just something that they're getting once, the hours that you provide would be really nice.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thanks.
So thank you again for being here and staying with us so late. In my day job, working for First Five, and so I'm just wondering, do you work with the local First Fives, with the children? We focus on children 0 to 5 and their parents, and so nutrition is really important in terms of that, in terms of, prenatally and all that good nutrition going in. So do you work with any of the First Fives at all?
We don't,
okay,
but we would be open to it,
okay.
Definitely.
So maybe I can get your card or some information.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That with me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. Thank you. So, board, I would like to request, if you're interested in us potentially just kind of moving these agenda items, the report agenda items 2 and 3 and 4 for our next board meeting, and then be able to move into closed session. Would you be agreeable to that? Yes. All right. So with that said, we're going to move into closed session to, look at items B4, Conference with Labor Negotiator, Government Code 54957.6, Agency Designated Representative Kerry Matsuoka, and then item 5, Conference with Labor Negotiator, Government Code 54957.6, Agency Designated Representative Kerry Matsuoka.